Welcome in, everybody, to this latest edition of the Attitude of Aggression Wrestling Podcast. This is episode number 328 of the show. I'm so glad you guys could come in and be a part of this episode because it is a special one. It is not just the 328th episode of the show, but it is also the return of the Big Five Project. And on this episode, as part of the Big Five Project, we are covering King of the Ring 1996, birth of Austin 316. We will get to that on this episode. But this episode is also special because we had a lot of coverage of the final match in the illustrious Hall of Fame, for sure, career of the one and only John Cena. And this episode is kind of going to be broken up into what eventually ended up being two live streams, is what we ended up with. The main live stream was myself and PC Tunney, recorded on Friday night, December 12th, and it was right before John Cena's final match. And so we recorded it the night before Saturday night's main event. We gave our thoughts on John's final match. We gave our thoughts on how it might go down. And then we got into the review of King of the Ring 1996. And you will hear all of that. That was live streamed Friday night. Quite a few people showed up for that. I mean, live, there are quite a few people there, but then the replay has been viewed by a lot of people. I then came on and did a separate live stream, and that was actually done earlier today. And one of the main reasons I came on and did it like on my own was because I finally figured out how to make the the title of the episode that we've been naming it in Riverside, the studio I used to record. We haven't been able to get that to transfer over the title to the live stream on X or on YouTube. It always was saying, "Welcome to our live show." Instead of saying, when we did the live stream the other night here in the studio, it said, "Thank you, Cena." And that's kind of what we wanted the title of the live stream to be, to let everybody know, hey, here's what we're talking about. John Cena and King of the Ring 1996. Over on those platforms, it just said, "Welcome to our live show," which really doesn't tell anybody listening what we're talking about, what the live stream is about. Not the most conducive way to get people to tune in. So I figured out what I was doing wrong, and I wanted to test that out. And so I turned that into a second live stream, and also just my own thoughts on John Cena's final match. So we will get into that. I will say, as kind of like an addendum to stuff we didn't talk about so far, on Raw tonight, Gunther, of course, came out and just eviscerated the legacy of John Cena, saying how he tapped like a little bitch and all this fun stuff. Of course, it was to be expected, because this is what they wanted to do. They wanted to turn Gunther into a monster heel. They did that. He got the whole Roman Reigns after kind of retiring the Undertaker, or what should have been the retirement of the Undertaker, standing in the ring, just getting booed vociferously by everybody and just basically saying, this is my yard now. It was comparable to that, what we saw on Raw tonight. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the next few weeks. But what we're going to do is we're going to get into, I will get you some Big Five music, and we'll get into that. Then it'll run from, we'll do the live stream that Tunney and I did the other night, which talks a lot about John Cena, about Saturday night's main event, how we thought that was going to go down. Then we got the review of King of the Ring 1996 and the birth of Austin 316. Says, "I just whipped your ass." Good stuff. And then after that, the second, we'll probably have a commercial break between what Tunney and I talked about the other night, and then where I come on for the last 30 minutes to give my thoughts on John's last match. And there's contact information. There will be some audio at the end, of course. How I like to throw some things on at the end that are topical to what we've discussed in the episode. That'll be no different this time out. So that's coming up at the end. But for now, so there won't be any formal "let me talk to you" sort of segment, but I kind of am talking to you guys the whole time. But it's a very solid episode here tonight. A lot of good things to talk about: the career, the legacy, so many things about John Cena on this episode. And of course, one of the most iconic moments in all of sports entertainment, with the birth of Austin 316. You really cannot go wrong with this episode. So thank you again for tuning in and showing up. Get some Big Five music going. And then after that, this episode will just roll to the end. I will be talking to you guys a little bit later on down the line. We've got this 11th annual Swaggy Awards coming up. We got some end of the year stuff going on over at Unidentified History. We're gearing up for the return of our Game of Thrones show. I guess I should figure out what the title of that's going to be. Hey, we know it's going to be Night of the Seven Kingdoms related. much we know. But you guys don't care about that. What you do care about is getting to this awesome content. If you have watched if you're one of the people, or one of the many people, I should say, who watched the live stream, a lot of this you'll have heard before. If you watch the little 30-minute live stream that I did earlier today, talking about getting, of course, figuring out the technological aspects of the live stream, but my own thoughts on the final match of John Cena, you can get that here. But I hope you guys enjoy this episode. We will be back soon. The 11th annual Swaggy Awards is going to be here before you know it, and more Big Five project goodness. Hopefully we figure out what's going to happen with the WWE library by the time we get to that point. Because if that goes away, that's going to be a bummer. I don't know. We'll have to figure out some new way to navigate things. But that's for later on down the line. For now, let's get some Big Five music going. Let's get into the discussion about the last match of John Cena and King of the Ring 1996. And we're going to get that Big Five music going and get in that direction right about now. Ladies and gentlemen, I think finally, welcome into this edition of the Attitude of Aggression Wrestling podcast. Oh my goodness. I am right off the bat. We have to apologize to anybody who was like waiting for us to actually go live here today, only 45 minutes late, because wow, with all this great technology in the world, you would think that things would be much easier. But it's not, because first the computer wants to do updates. Then for some reason, Riverside wasn't connecting to the X live stream. YouTube was fine. So thank you, YouTube. But Elon, he must be pissed, because I complained the other day to him, Tunney, that ever since he did these encrypted chat bullshit, everything's been a mess on X lately. All the like notifications are it's like the wait times at Six Flags Magic Mountain. If it tells you there's 20 minutes, it's probably only 10. So like here they're telling you there's like 20 notifications. There's really only 10. But anyway, how are you doing, man? Again, to anybody who's tuning in, my most sincere apologies for the late start. We're scrambling to try and figure this thing out, but hardware is a pain in the ass.
Better late than never, Dave. Let's put it that way. How about this? Last night, the one time I go to sleep at night and don't have my phone on the charger, I update to iOS 26.1. So we get up with not a lot of power on the phone to have. So I had to leave the phone in low power mode all day at work today. Yeah.
Oh, so you got all the weird stuff that they do with the glass and all that sort of thing? Real glass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got all the weird, new, different. It looks weird. It's different. My iPhone updated. The problem is I have an iPhone 13 mini, so it's like basically they're just running me away. Like I'm gonna have to get a new phone probably before the clock strikes July 4th here in 2026. But that's just the way the world works. My iPhone hasn't been backed up in like 400 days either. So what do you want me to do about it? I mean, what can you do?
How many days?
A lot. Do you want do you want the exact number?
No, we don't need to do that. Oh, man. So I'm just glad you're here. It is a very stripped down version of the Big Five project here today. And that's okay, because for you guys at home, you have got the dynamic duo. We are not the two-man power trip of wrestling. That's another podcast, and a very good one at that. I'll say a shout out to those guys over there who we've been following each other for many, many years. And speaking of many, many years, this is going to be a special edition of the Attitude of Aggression Wrestling podcast, and a special edition of the Big Five Project, because, of course, we're talking, as far as the grand scheme of things in the Big Five Project, we will be talking about King of the Ring 1996. That will be coming on a little bit later on. At the front end of the show, though, we have to talk about the biggest story in all of professional wrestling. And that, of course, is tomorrow night on Peacock, one of the last events. I don't know what they're going to do with Saturday night's main event, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But on Saturday night's main event on Peacock, it is the final match in the illustrious career of the GOAT, the one and only John Cena. I made a post earlier today, kind of like promoting what we were doing here today. And I noted, and I said that in the near 11 years of this podcast, but that includes your podcast too, because you've been doing this as long, maybe slightly even longer than I have by a couple months or something like that. But the thing is that, we have both been doing our respective shows, the Attitude of Aggression. You guys have got the DWI Wrestling Podcast. Shout out to It's Me DPP. And if you want to send your hate tweets to any place, it is at It's Me DPP, right, Tony?
Or at It's Ray Cash, one of the two. One of the at its.
At the
Pick
Real
one.
C Platt. Yeah, exactly.
That works too.
But like I said, since both of these shows started all those years ago, John Cena has been a key part of the conversation for the entirety of that whole run. And he hasn't been there the whole time. And we know he's been a part-timer around like the second year that I was started to do this. 2016. Well, he was hurt. So I remember because he showed up in Dallas for WrestleMania 32 and he stood there when The Rock beat, Eric Rowan in like 6 seconds. And he stood shoulder to shoulder with The Rock, and they took on the Wyatt family and all that stuff. But yeah, right after WrestleMania 32, he got very active and got involved with probably one of his best rivalries of all time, with AJ Styles. And it's a rivalry that put AJ on the map and all that sort of stuff. But we'll get into that in a minute. But I got to ask you, man. So tomorrow night, John Cena versus Gunther for his final match. A couple of things I wanted to point out or pose to you, Tony, and get your thoughts on this was Gunther the right choice for his final opponent? Should it have been LA Knight instead of Gunther? What do you think about that?
If you're arguing about should it have been either one of them, like you're missing out on the point. Like they're it's almost the same thing. Like Gunther's 38, LA Knight's 43 or 44 or 39 and 4, whatever. They're not. Here's the thing. You talked about this on DWI 500 and Greg hit it on the head, like giving Brock Lesnar the Undertaker's streak and giving Gunther this last win and retiring John Cena. They tend to give these big things to people they trust. Now, I made an argument for it with DP about it could have been LA Knight, a guy that they get to the precipice every single time, but then he comes and cools back down again. It's a guy they can keep heating up. They can keep maintaining sales. Gunther, man, he needs this. He needs something. I don't know what's going to happen from it. I really hope that it's an immediate bonus for him. I don't know. He's just his lack. There's a vacuum part of his personality that's starting to show where the charisma goes.
We're not calling him Lex Luger yet, guys, but
I didn't say that. I just said I didn't listen. It's like, honey, I didn't call you a bitch. I said you were being a bitch.
That's right. Yeah. My thoughts on it are, I think LA Knight probably would have benefited from it more than Gunther, because Gunther is so established, longest reigning Intercontinental Champion, multi-time world champion. I had that great run as the WWE/NXT UK champion. So, I get what you're saying. The comparison to Brock Lesnar and Brock ending the streak is pretty apropos, because as dominant as Brock was, that put him into beast level, right? I mean, once he broke the streak, Brock was a different animal entirely. He broke the streak. Then he just annihilates John Cena at SummerSlam a few months later. Suplex City's born, all that sort of stuff. Will this have the same impact for Gunther? Possibly. He almost does have. Here's the other question I want to ask for you. Gunther's going around saying he's going to make John Cena tap out. I don't think there's any chance in hell John Cena taps out. Pass out, yes. Tap out, zero chance. They're not going to have John Cena tap. Now, would it put Gunther over in the biggest and most emphatic way possible if John did tap out? Yes, but I just don't see them going that far. And if he passes out, it gets the same. You think? What do you think?
He might. I think he passes out. Like I've been like I called it when he used that new finisher. It's an STFU, but it modified where he's got his arms rolled over so they're reversed, but over the top of it. But I don't know. It's just so boring though too. Even that's boring. Like he's boring. go. You know what, folks? Go on YouTube and watch him on the Rich Eisen show. Oh my goodness, he doesn't even speak into the microphone loud enough. It's so bad I had to turn it off. Like, I'm rooting for the guy, but I'm a fan. I have eyes and ears and mouth and nose.
Well, you have never really been a fan of
He's
Gunther.
A great worker. He just doesn't. He's not. Yeah, he's not going to be what they think he's going to be.
Right, and you've never been a fan of his in the first place. You've been complaining about his charisma or lack thereof.
But don't excuse his behavior with my lack of fanship. That's bullshit. Dave, you're honest. He is leading the witness. This is total.
I am.
This is a Travis Schumachery, Your Honor.
Yeah, objection to yourself. Yes. So I get what you're saying. I mean, Gunther is not the most charismatic guy in the world. And you had mentioned a couple of weeks ago, like when some of this stuff was building up, that you thought maybe they might be trying to turn him face. And he probably could benefit from a face run if they could pull it, because that will force him to bring out his personality, wouldn't it? I mean, if you're a baby face, either you're going to sink or
does he benefit more by turning face, losing this match? Just like he just couldn't beat him, but then like at the end he appreciates Cena, and like I just don't see Cena winning though.
Right, and I don't either. But that is the other kind of thing to consider. Is this because John's such a traditionalist, and the tradition is you go out on your back and that sort of thing, and that's always what happened. But John is so beloved, and this run has been so good, especially ever since he flipped back to face at SummerSlam. I would say 75% of me says Gunther wins this. There's 25% of me holding on to the hope that John walks away somehow with the win. I can't see it happening, but like you're saying, would that benefit Gunther if he shows, because Gunther really doesn't show a lot of respect to anybody at this point in time. We've never seen him. Maybe Drew and Sheamus, for those wars that they went through, there was some begrudging respect there. But I think that's my best guess is John Cena will pass out. He won't tap out. Gunther will win this thing. And that'll be okay. And maybe after it's over, if Gunther shows respect to John Cena for pushing him to the absolute limit, and I don't think Gunther can just shit all over him at the end of this thing. That's not going to go over so well. He's got to be somewhat respectful. And, I guess the other big thing is that going to be it? Gunther beats John, and is that it?
Well,
or is there something else? Yeah.
This is going off last. All the people that thought it was
going off first. Is it going off last?
No, it's not. It's not. It's going last. John has said it's going last, basically, on multiple platforms. How do you put him first? Because what happens then?
How do you follow
what happens?
That? How do you follow that?
Right. Because here's the problem. The rest of the matches are main roster versus NXT.
Yeah.
So there's John's last match. It is done. And then, now you guys all go out there and do your thing. And no, that's not how this is going to work. Plus, it's John's last. That's it. That's how it's happening. Let's just skip all of that. But here's the thing. All right, Gunther beats him. I want the show of respect. Gunther picks him up probably, and, instead of beating him up, he raises his arm, says thank you, and Gunther leaves. Now, I need a good 30, 45 minutes after this match is over of celebration for John Cena. I need everybody in the locker room out on the stage. I need the people you didn't think were going to be there come down and talk or say something. I need some kind of something after it's over. If it ends after the match is over and we're done and I don't get that, not going to be happy.
I don't know if you'll get 30 minutes. I could see 15, but
they're on streaming. What's next? They did say is Johnny Carson going to have to bump a guest? That
would be a neat trick.
Lindsay is Lindsey Buckingham not going to make it on What Up with That again? Is that what's going to happen because we don't have any time?
God. Can we get a What Up with That?
What up with that, Peacock? What up with that?
It's constipated. No, never mind. Whatever he says. He says all sorts of stuff. All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering that at the end of it all, do we get... Because, do you think there's anything that they could be swerving us at all with this retirement and trying to...
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but, I see people hoping that... I like the one guy...
The Rock thing. Yeah.
The Rock thing where he says, your soul still belongs to me and you can't retire. I would be down with that, but that's not going to happen.
That just undermines Gunther so much. That undermines John. That undermines the whole thing.
In the post match, if you wanted to be super ultra heel, who could attack John? Could Brock be the one? Because Brock did show some respect. Could Brock attack him and Gunther saves Cena from Brock and that sets off the whole Gunther Brock scenario? I don't know, but
None of that's happening. This is just John versus Gunther. Gunther wins. Gunther leaves. Celebrate John. That's the way this has to be.
probably. I would think that it gets, you don't want to get it too convoluted. So I turn to you with the next John Cena kind of question. Just straight up, is he the GOAT? Is he the greatest of all time?
Before we do that, before we
Sure.
leave the match,
You ask me whatever you want.
Who's all there? Who's all there legends wise wrestling, and who's all there pop culture wise? Is Donald Trump in attendance? Is Vince somewhere?
Vince is going to be good. That's a really good
Vince
question.
will be at the after party to say hi to John,
Vince,
I would imagine.
I don't think he'll be on camera because it just would create too many issues.
Donald Trump will be there?
It is in DC. It is in DC. I mean, it's not that big of a stretch to imagine that. You would think he would have announced it by now, right?
I think wrestling wise, any legend of wrestling that wants to, is capable, and is still on good terms, will be in attendance in some form or fashion. It's going to be ridiculous how many people are there. I think that's going to be the most insane thing, is how many different people are there to see this and pay their I mean, Ric Flair's under AEW contract, right? I bet she's there. He don't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
You're assuming for the money I don't have. Go ahead.
People are like Samoa Joe did a pretty cool tribute to John the other night. He got the guy in the STF gave the salute. I would imagine a lot of people are going to be there. I mean, maybe people like you're saying who can't be on screen, like could Adam Copeland be backstage or something like that? They probably would allow him back there, even though he's under contract.
God, yeah.
You know, I can't imagine, Bryan is just he gives something complimentary, then he sticks his foot in his mouth all the time whenever. So I don't know if Bryan will be there. But yeah, I think, Taker will certainly be there. We know Undertaker's going to be there. He's doing something with AJ Styles in DC for Undertaker's own podcast. So we know those two guys are going to be there. You think back to John's biggest rivals. Do we get Batista? Will there be a Chris Jericho, any sort of sighting or anything like that? Probably not.
I don't think we'll get Jericho sighting because I think his AEW contract goes through the end of the year. But you could definitely, I think Batista 100% will be there, as long as he's not actually having to be somewhere to film that he just physically can't do it. Those are the kind of people I'm talking about. Like they're all going to be there. Kurt Angle will be there.
Yeah.
I'll bet you. You're just going to get a lot of people like that.
We know Shawn will be there.
Cool.
We know Hunter will be there.
Oh, yeah.
Brock, Roman.
Yeah.
Seth will probably
Even if they're
be
not
there.
out there. Yeah. I would imagine that ramp, that stage at the top of the ramp should be ridiculous once Gunther exits back to the backstage.
Yeah.
He might even be a part of that.
You'd think back to some of those iconic retirement moments. Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels are the two that really, and Undertaker as well. Undertaker, you really didn't know when his career was done until it was done. But you look at the two guys that jumped to my mind, retirement matches, and you knew they were done. Savage at WrestleMania 7, of course, that happened in the ring. There wasn't any, and he flipped from being heel to babyface in the post-match moments with Liz and Sherry. So that's different. But Flair and Shawn are the ones that really stand out to me because they both got to do their goodbyes like the next night on Raw, and you got everybody was involved. Like you're saying, all that, everybody at the top of the stage was there. This will be similar to that, I would imagine.
Well, you're not going to have your next night goodbye. That's why you got to have something. You know what I mean? That's it. You're not probably not going to see John again until WrestleMania.
Hall of Fame, maybe. Now, see, and there's a question. I mean, we know Steph's going in the Hall of Fame this year. Does John go in as well? I mean, would that take away from her, or would they?
I think Steph's the headliner. I think John is a different year where they can ramp it up. I think. Mainly because, you know what? I think Stephanie's the one who inducts John.
Do you? Okay.
Who else inducts John?
Maybe Kurt Angle is the only other one I could think of. But I like Stephanie. That's a good choice.
I mean, she's the one
maybe
Steph's the one who was heard him rap on the bus and said, he was on his way out. He'd do that on TV. And then sure enough, he's United States champ before you know it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So getting back to the question I'd asked you, is John Cena the greatest of all time? It's easy to call him that, but would you say he's the GOAT?
So no DWI podcast this week. Sorry, guys.
What?
We didn't have one this week. Scheduling and things of that
Ah.
nature. We'll be back next week. Not a big deal with 503. So I was thinking a lot about this discussion today at work. This is one of the things to think about. Is he the greatest of all time? He's on my Mount Rushmore of WrestleMania era UFWE. It's Hogan, it's Austin, it's Cena, it's Roman. WrestleMania era WW. That's the Mount Rushmore for WW/WWE WrestleMania era. It is. You can't argue that it isn't. There's no one else you can put in front of them. So you put Rock in, but not. He's not the greatest of his era. It's Austin.
So you're saying Hogan, Austin, Cena, and Roman.
Yep.
Hogan and Austin for sure. They're on my Mount Rushmore. It gets tricky after that because.
But this is WWE, WWF, not WCW.
I almost
just WrestleMania era.
I got to put Undertaker on there. I mean, that streak, he's a tough one to leave off, right? Roman is certainly creeping up into the conversation. John is, if we're excluding WCW, which really gets rid of the Ric Flair conversation, and that's a big problem. But if you get rid of that and you're just saying WWE WrestleMania era, not era. Yeah, Hogan for sure, Austin for sure. Yeah, man, Taker, Shawn, that's so 50, but you got to have Cena there, yeah.
John's not. So for me, if you want to ask me who's the greatest professional wrestling superstar of all time, right? Like all time. Professional wrestling is, as long as it's been a determined outcome beforehand, right? That's professional wrestling, right? If you take away, so I'm going to preface this by the college football playoff induction show that they got it right, that Notre Dame didn't make it. Because if you took the name Notre Dame off of that football team, the metrics were easy. The Miami football team beat them and everything else is the same. So they would get in when those were the teams that were vying, basically. If you take away the Terry Bollea bullshit and just take in who the Hulk Hogan wrestling character, that's the greatest of all time. It's not even a question. It's not even a question. Hulk, the real American Hulk Hogan WrestleMania era into Hollywood Hulk Hogan 83 weeks of dominating Vince era. And then folks, let's not throw away his comeback to WWF, WWE, like, the Mr. America stuff with the lie detector and he had the overselling from Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
Like I've been on record and, just appalled at the lack of contrition that someone of his stature was and how big of a mistake he continued to make throughout his life, considering that big fuck up. But as a professional wrestling character and entity, I still think that from WrestleMania 1 to WCW and back again, that's probably the GOAT to me. John's up there, though.
John's up there.
I said, Mount Rushmore of WrestleMania era for me, WWEF.
I would probably give Austin an edge over Hogan, to be honest with you. And I say that because I look at the era that, from what was going on during that era with the Supreme Challenge from WCW and WWE teetering on the brink of absolute disaster. Yeah, and I understand Hulk put everything on the map and made WrestleMania what it was, but for Austin to rise above with the roster that they had during the Attitude Era was unbelievably stacked on both companies. Austin was the one who got them the most pop. I mean, the ratings. Hulk drew a big. When you look at the main event, that Hogan Andre rematch, it's still the most viewed wrestling event of all time, right?
It's like,
and you know me, I'm a huge Hulkamaniac, but I would go with Austin over Hogan. But you're talking 1A and 1B almost.
It's funny because I would put Austin number one all time, but it's funny because it's like a Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods kind of thing. You have the longevity and all the records, and then you have this. No one's ever shined brighter for that amount of time, for those 4 or 5 years, than Austin, right?
Right. I will say this, though. In the 11 almost 11 years we've been doing this show. There have been a lot of times where we looked at John Cena and it's like, I don't see it. What the hell? That whole let's go Cena sucks. You and I, at numerous times over the past decade, have been firmly in the Cena sucks camp. A lot of times, a lot of times. It has been but I will say this, man. This last run where he could have mailed it in, could have rested on his laurels, could have done like, a couple dates here and there, wanted to do 200 dates, and it was Hunter who said, no, that's not going to happen. He's done everything asked of him. He hasn't mailed it in. He's done like 36 dates. He's gone all over the world. He's made the same kid in Belgium cry and smile in the same run. It's when you really look at what he has done in this retirement run. And what I love about it is he gave everybody a chance to really say goodbye. And like with Austin, we didn't get that chance because no one knew that the match against The Rock was the last up until the Kevin Owens thing. And I know you still are holding on. That wasn't a match, even if it was, but that's okay, Tony.
That was a cool segment.
There's a 3 count.
What?
It's a match. Anyway, but, like Rock,
1,
he didn't really...
2, 3. Are we having a match right now? All right.
Well,
I rest my case, Your Honor.
Shoulders aren't on the mat yet, but I think, it's been good because he's given everybody a chance to say goodbye in their own way during this run. And yes, there's been, the heel turn and I adamantly stand by the fact that whatever you think of the heel turn, if it didn't happen, we wouldn't appreciate the face turn as much as we did. So I don't think I can say he's the GOAT, but he is absolutely, and I would not have said this 5-6 years ago, but now sitting here today, absolutely, he belongs in the conversation. He has done it all. I think his resume of really good matches is probably underrated by a lot of us because it gets lost in that whole 5 moves of doom bullshit, which, yeah, that was a cliche, but there's some unbelievably good matches that he had along the way that I don't think he gets enough appreciation from, that I'm looking at, saying, yeah, okay, I really underappreciated him and I should have grasped what was going on a little bit better. John's a quintessential performer. The stuff outside the ring with the Make-A-Wish, he is the GOAT there. Nobody even comes close to John Cena. He is absolutely the greatest of all time as far as Make-A-Wish goes and that sort of thing. So, that's wow. That's disappointing. I thought the Capitals had a shot at Quinn Hughes. Anyway, no one cares except me. But what do you think about all that, Tony? I mean, your thoughts on, well, we're not going to spend too much more time on John, but, there's a few other things I wanted to ask you.
No, he, much like kind of Steve Austin-esque, like, I guess it's a little different because he actually turned heel and Roman kind of actually turned heel, but John was the same person and he could get people to cheer him and boo him. And that's just so rare. Like, he didn't have to even be heel to draw each side of the emotions out of the fans. So that's just super special in and of itself. 2 iconic theme entrances, 2 iconic songs. The guy, basically revolutionized how to take off a t-shirt.
That's true.
It's the down the one arm and right over,
Yeah, I wish I knew how to do that, but I don't know how that works. So yeah, I can't see him either, Tony. What are some of your favorite, I look back and what are some of your favorite John Cena rivalries? And I think AJ Styles for me is the one that really jumps to mind as far as and it may not be his greatest rivalry. Edge, I think, is probably his greatest rivalry of all time. But from the standpoint of what that series of matches did for AJ Styles, to come into WWE as he was, John put him on the map, and AJ's the first one to tell you, yeah, John Cena's the one who put me on the map. I think that sort of thing I love the series of matches with AJ Styles. Because I was at the first one in Vegas for Money in the Bank, and I think my favorite John Cena match of all time is probably, ironically, the one at SummerSlam 2016 when AJ beats him is my favorite John Cena match because of what it meant for both of them. Because it showed that John could go with the best in the world. No, all due respect to CM Punk, AJ Styles will wrestle circles around you, Phil. But John hung right in there with AJ Styles, and he made AJ Styles that night. AJ wasn't even the champion yet. But after that, it was like 2 months later, he beats Ambrose in Sacramento. I was at that one too. AJ Styles is the champion. But what's your favorite? What's your favorite rivalry and your favorite match of John's?
Honestly, I think my favorite match of John's was his AJ Styles match and their tribute to everybody that they've ever been around.
Last one?
Yeah. I think so. I think AJ is John's last great rival. I think DP and I had a Mount Rushmore for John's rivals, and I think we got it right. While there's other people that he's had tons of work with, like Batista and Undertaker and Hunter and Shawn and Roman and Seth and other people, I think his top four are Brock Lesnar, CM Punk, Randy Orton, and Edge. I think those are his four greatest rivals. Along with those others I just mentioned, there's a few other people that he's had, some Sheamus and etc. Obviously JBL, Big Show, but yeah, I think his four greatest rivals to me: Edge, Orton, Punk, and Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. I think those are really good choices, and I like your choice of the last match with AJ Styles, the tribute match.
It's so
Good
much
stuff.
fun.
It was, and they did such a great job about that. So, yeah, that's where we're probably going to leave John Cena behind. I mean, tomorrow night we'll be here. It's hard to believe it's here already. That we've got John Cena. Final match, Gunther, we've talked about it. But Tony, you mentioned Saturday night's main event has some other matches on there, and they're kind of interesting ones as well. I want to ask you about the first one, Cody Rhodes taking on Obafemi, the NXT champion. And you've been saying ever since Survivor Series War Games, where we got the guy in the mask climbing the fence and delivering a stomp to CM Punk, which enabled Braun Breaker to wipe out Punk. Everybody's been speculating who the guy in the mask was. You kind of threw out there an interesting suggestion that I said, come on, that would make sense. But now, after watching what happened on NXT this Tuesday, you have suggested Ricky Saints might be the man behind the mask. And now I'm looking at this whole situation, looking at who Obafemi is facing on Saturday, and knowing that Ricky Saints and Cody Rhodes are thick as thieves. I gotta say, Tony, maybe there's something to this man in the mask theory being Ricky Saints. And especially if we are moving in the direction of Cody versus Roman 3, in Vegas. I don't think Roman's going to go into that match as the heel. Could we be seeing, the vision is one thing, but could Cody Rhodes flip heel during this match, kind of with the assistance of Ricky Saints, and start his own faction on the road to WrestleMania? What are your thoughts on this whole thing? I mean, because I can't see this just being Oba putting Cody over. I don't know if that makes a whole hell of a lot of sense.
That's the interesting thing about these NXT versus main roster matches, right? Like, you want the NXTs to come off looking good, otherwise what's the point? But at the same time, how Teflon and how fast can you get past maybe having someone like Cody take a hit, right? I don't know that Cody's going to necessarily start his own heel faction or anything. At the most, it might be like a sidekick, but I don't even really see that happening. I've been throwing so much shit at the wall as far as like Buddy Murphy, Austin Theory,
Chris Jericho.
Well, Jericho or Orton is like, okay, well, clearly it physically wasn't that person, right? Like, I think it'd be super cool if it was Jake Paul down the road, with Logan Paul. Yeah, like set that up for WrestleMania or something. But especially since Jake Paul's probably going to, I mean, if it's a legit fight, he's going to get his head knocked off by Anthony Joshua, but it probably won't be. It'll probably be another thumb biting thing like Tyson's fight, which is ridiculous. But anyway, I don't know. That'd be interesting, though. Like, I think Ricky Saints could definitely be that guy. Someone that we talked about that probably wasn't long for NXT. And then, has he had a good NXT run already, albeit maybe a little short, but come right up into a Vision storyline would be a pretty awesome hot shot.
Yeah, all that stuff is very interesting to me as far as like what they're going to do with because I would have sworn Obafemi would be the one going to the main roster before Ricky Saints.
I mean,
and that didn't happen?
What if Brock Lesnar is the one to show up and cost Obafemi, and then you have like a dream match there or something? I have no idea.
Well,
I have no idea.
That's coming. That's coming pretty soon. Yeah, that's gonna be a hell of a match, man. Oba, as long as Oba looks good in this whole thing, I mean, Cody's probably gonna win either straight up or with some timely assistance. I'm pretty sure Cody wins this one.
I mean, you probably got Oba and Gunther down the road somewhere too, hey?
Yes, dude, take my money. And there's a few people I want to see. Oba versus Gunther, Oba versus Braun, Oba versus Brock. I mean, I'm there for all of that. We got Bailey taking on Sol Ruka, which if Soul was at 100%, which I know it's kayfabe and all that sort of thing, but we saw in the Iron Survivor Challenge, she's still sporting that knee injury. Sol Ruca is, I'm proud of myself for saying it a year ago, superstar in the making. She's almost there. If she's not already there right now. I mean, that we were, I know when we first started talking about the Soul Snatcher, I know like DJ was a little bit like concerned about how you had to position yourself perfectly. Dude, that girl can snatch that soul out of anything nowadays, man. If you're anywhere near her,
Well,
she is going to snatch your soul.
hey
Yeah.
now,
So,
my wife, take my wife.
dude, she is spectacular. Bailey probably win this one, but you know, if they had Soul at 100%, but it's going to be good for her to showcase herself in this whole thing. She's not long for NXT any longer at this point. You got to get her to the main roster. There's as deep as that NXT women's roster is, the main roster could definitely use somebody like her moving into Vegas. What's the other? There's one more match, isn't there? What's the other one?
There's tag match. I
Who's
think Javon Evans is teaming up with somebody
oh
against
with Leon
AJ
Slater?
yeah, against
Yeah.
AJ and
Right. And I, that'll be fun. Javon will look good. Slater will look good. AJ and Dragon Lee aren't losing that match because they're going to set them up for the Usos who have reunited officially as a tag team. I think the single Yeet experiment is now officially over, and it's time to get the Usos back on the tag team scene. But the last thing I want to ask you before we move out of here and get into the Big Five project, the Iron Survivor Challenge, this thing that they're doing in NXT is very interesting match format. Do you see them bringing that to the main roster like they did with War Games? Like War Games started in NXT, right? And then that gradually migrated to the main roster where it is now a staple of Survivor Series. Do you see them bringing the Iron Survivor Challenge to the main roster? I can't see why they wouldn't at some point, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think it's perfect for NXT. I think they realized that War Games was perfect for the main roster because like we've all known for a long time that Survivor Series just wasn't it. Survivor Series was a great thing when you didn't have TV every week because all of a sudden these guys that you never seen together, now you see everybody together all the time and the storylines go so fast and they're on this show and that show, which is great. I don't like the brand split, so I'm totally for everybody being on whatever show they want to be on. But I just don't see that format. I think it works better for NXT. I really think it does. I think it's perfect for them. I think they need to keep something to themselves too. They can't just keep running everything out of there, which they haven't. They've kind of taken over a lot of the old WCW pay-per-views names, which has kind of lent them some tradition as well. So I think this is good for them. I think War Games is right where it needs to be, and Survivor Series is thriving with it.
Yeah, since War Games went to the main roster, they have not done it in NXT ever since then.
It's Survivor Series now. That's what it is.
And they and that's an Iron Survivor. Maybe that's not so ironic of a name after all. Has kind of filled the gap to that.
And the other thing too is like, what else does NXT have that provides a title shot that they have that you get a shot, right? The main roster already has a couple of different things like that. The King of the Ring now does that, and Queen of the Ring, right? Money in the Bank and Royal Rumble. They have 3 things. And Elimination Chamber. They have 4 things that provide you with a title shot. So NXT needs to have their thing.
Yeah. I think you got a point about that. Well, we'll see what happens. But yeah, tomorrow night, Saturday night's main event, going to be a big deal. And then after that, man, Royal Rumble is the next. I think the next. You got stuff happening over in NXT, but you got the first posters.
There's a Saturday night's main event at the end of January, and then that
is that
first
January after the Rumble,
the 24th, I think.
Isn't the Rumble the 26th? I don't know. When is the Royal Rumble?
The Rumble's the first in February.
Is it? I don't know. Let me look that thing up. Rumble 2026. Oh, so like
January 3rd.
We got Braun's taking on Royal Rumble 2026, January 31st.
January
so it's about
31st.
A week
and
after.
the 24th is Saturday night's main event in Montreal. And then the first Raw, January 5th, is going to be huge. I think it's at the Intuit again. So you probably get Chris Jericho that.
Yeah, I got to actually look at the cost for tickets to that, man. I need to get my ass down there. But all right, good stuff all the way around. Tomorrow night's going to be a big night.
You need to save your money and not go to any WWE shows and come to Wisconsin and golf Whistling Straits this summer.
Yes, I'll do that. I would much rather do that. I'll probably have a better time and probably save money at that point. But you ready to talk? A little King of the Ring 1996?
Let's do it.
Tony's ready. So it is now we're transitioning out from John Cena Celebration to the Big Five Project, and King of the Ring 1996 is on the docket for this week. So when we last left you guys on the Big Five Project, Shawn Michaels had captured the WWF Championship from Bret Hart in an epic 1-hour Iron Man match that was either overhyped or overrated, or it was just damn good all the way around, depending on who you talk to. And, last time you had me and Tunney and Rob talking about this whole thing. So it was a very solid WrestleMania. From there, we get to go to King of the Ring 1996. And I got to tell you, man, like I was looking at the history of this stuff, right? And I wanted to really wanted to give Grokkopedia a shot. To kind of look at what it was doing and seeing, dude, it got so many things wrong about this event. It's just like
Grok's been rough lately, man. Grok's been rough lately.
It really has. The whole platform has just been difficult and not so good. But I mean, it got like matches that didn't happen. It's like talking like, what the fuck are you talking about? That didn't happen here. But so we've got the big thing that happens, of course, on the way to this whole thing is the curtain call on May 19th at Madison Square Garden. Because as we talked about the last time, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash had given their notice to Vince. And this resulted in Vince pulling out or like getting Scott Hall off of the WrestleMania 12 card. Diesel was already locked in to take on Undertaker. So you had all that stuff going on. But Diesel had given his notice. So this goes on May 19th at Madison Square Garden. We get the curtain call, which is where at the end of the night, it is Scott Hall and Kevin Nash's last match in WWE before they go off to WCW. Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Shawn Michaels came out at the end of this whole thing. And I think at this time, right, Diesel was still a heel, as was Hunter. Scott and Shawn were faces. So they come out in the middle of the ring, as everybody knows. They all embrace each other as Kevin Nash and Scott Hall are WCW bound. And Sean Waltman's not far behind them as well. So most of the clique is kind of disintegrating. But as we know, of course, if you're tuning in, maybe you don't know, and that's why you're tuning in. But Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H, was pegged to win the King of the Ring tournament in 1996. When the curtain call came down, the old school got really upset about this thing because you killed kayfabe. You had faces and heels in the ring together, embracing with each other. This is not how we do things. This is not how we do business here, sir.
We're not really that far removed from what Jim Duggan and the Iron Sheik eating together at a diner and costing Duggan a possible championship run with Hogan.
Getting high together and getting caught and all that kind of stuff. So, I wish Iron Sheik was here to say how fuck the Hulk Hogan, that sort of thing. Always,
Jabroni.
Forever. Jabroni. So when this curtain call event happens, somebody's got to pay the price. Somebody's got to get punished. It's like National Treasure. Somebody's got to go to prison, Ben. And Hunter, you're that person because Scott and Kev were on their way to WCW. Vince can't do anything to them. He certainly can't punish Shawn Michaels, who is his champion at this point in time, which means, Paul, Hunter, before you're ever even my son-in-law, you're going to take it in the shorts on this one, pal. And he does. As we'll talk about the qualifying matches and how that goes down. And then Hunter's going to job for several months, and then Vince is going to eventually reward him by giving him the Intercontinental Championship. So all's well that ends well. But opportunity is so important because how different would things look had Hunter gone over at the King of the Ring tournament? Is it as bad as King Mabel the year before? Of course not. But it is certainly not what we're going to get at this event and the birth of a very certain slogan, T-shirt, movement, what have you. So that's the big underpinning story to me is that this one incident that took place in Madison Square Garden redefined everything. Changed the industry completely, right?
What?
Yeah,
oh, excuse
you
me.
can jump in there, Tony. Dynamite drop in there, Monty. Those broadcasting lessons.
No, 100%. It's more about like at what point would Austin have broken through? It was going to happen, but really fast tracked.
Right. I mean, and it gave him it gave him the platform and the forum to really do something special with this whole thing. And he's going to take full advantage of that. The other big story going into this thing revolves around, well, there's two other big ones that come in. Let's talk before we go to Shawn Michaels. Let's talk about Undertaker, because we have long lamented the fact that Undertaker's opposition, with the exception of Diesel at WrestleMania 12, which I think was kind of a turning point, right, in the Undertaker's whole stature, because up until then, you've been dealing with Giant Gonzalez, Kamala, Yoko was a different story, that sort of thing. But it hadn't been, what you're really looking forward to. After WrestleMania, along comes this guy called Mick Foley, right? And Mick Foley is going to change everything. And Cactus Jack, he comes in as Mankind. He attacks Undertaker. What's the April 1st episode of Raw? Mankind makes his debut, beats Bob Holly. Later that night, he attacks The Undertaker. This is coming. I will give Wikipedia credit right now because they actually got this stuff right, and Grokpedia had their head up their ass. Elon, got to get your shit together. Anyway, Mankind attacks Undertaker during his match with Bradshaw. There's another segment where Mankind attacks The Undertaker again at In Your House 8. Taker was challenging Goldust for the Intercontinental Championship. Mankind attacks him. This is in a casket match. Undertaker in casket matches, a little hit and miss, despite the fact that it should be his jam, baby. This leads to a match between Undertaker and Mankind at King of the Ring. This is going to change the trajectory of Undertaker's career completely. This feud with Mankind is going to change every trajectory about Undertaker's career and will take it to an entirely different level. Do you agree with that sentiment, or?
No, 100%. It's changing the Undertaker from being this hokey kind of gimmicky kind of thing. Not that he hasn't had like good matches and storylines, but it's going to get a lot more serious. It's going to get a lot more depth to his character. Mick Foley's working like at his best rate right now. His favorite match of his is Mind Games, In Your House Mind Games. I think that was April of 96. And against Shawn Michaels. So Foley is like working at his best where he's making everybody else look good right now. He can still move. He's really in shape right now. A lot of the injuries about to incur in the next couple years haven't hit him yet. But yeah, like he's just a godsend for not just WWE at this time, but for the Undertaker. Like I remember him coming in and a guy that I was actually scared of, and when he came in, if you remember, it was something new where his entrance and exit music were different.
Yeah. When he comes in, it does look a lot different than what it will morph into. But yeah, like you're saying, his involvement with everything really kind of transcends what the Undertaker was at this point in time. It gave him somebody who wasn't scared of him, who just went straight at him. And nobody had done that up until this point. Everybody was running scared from Undertaker. Except you saw Diesel at WrestleMania 12 got right up in there and really kind of Undertaker, and that came back to bite him in the ass in the match. But Mankind's the first guy to really kind of come in there and challenge the Undertaker in a way that was very unexpected. So that's one of the other big matches. Then, of course, you've got stuff going on. So Goldust is like the central point of a lot of these disputes. And the dispute between the Ultimate Warrior, this is the end of the road for the Warrior kids. We get the Warrior for one last event, yeah, and then it's all, because I guess Warrior had drawn a comic at this point in time that Jerry Lawler was kind of making fun of. And that's part of the problem is, remember when Warrior shows up in the ring for a promo and he's wearing that baseball cap, everybody's like, what the fuck is this? He's advertising his comic, that sort of thing. And it just, and so this is going to lead to a match between the Ultimate Warrior and Jerry the King Lawler. Jerry's like 40 years old. Yeah, exciting. Meanwhile, though, we've got stuff going on with Shawn Michaels and the British Bulldog, long-time rivals. And they are going to get to this rivalry leading into this for the WWF Championship that Shawn has won, including what was essentially a double pin at, I think it was at In Your House. Which one was it?
Was that Mind Games?
I don't know if it was at Mind.
No, it was earlier in the year. It was like
no,
in February, wasn't it?
In Your House 8. Both men's shoulders were down on the mat. Earl Hebner awarded Michaels a victory. There's also this angle involving Diana Hart-Smith that we'll talk about in a little bit when we get to the match. But that's kind of where we are as we head into this thing. You got any thoughts on that before we kind of get into the tournament and the preliminary matches that led to where we got to when the actual pay-per-view starts?
No, I'm just happy we're in 1996, Dave. You
I
know, you
know.
got Mankind, you got Steve Austin is Stone Cold. You know, we're working our way forward here. It's a
We're
good
going to
thing.
get Rocky Maivia really soon here. So all the pieces are falling into place right now. Attitude Era is not very far behind. So let's talk about the tournament itself. So we know King of the Ring single elimination. So the qualification for the tournament started on the May 27th, 1996 episode of Raw. Ultimate Warrior wrestled Intercontinental Champion Goldust to a double countout. So there's a quick elimination sort of situation there. Vader beat Ahmed Johnson. Okay. The qualification then we go to June 1st. Justin Hawk Bradshaw, also known as JBL, yes,
Getting there. Getting there.
defeated Henry Godwin. Okay. June 3rd, Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's going to beat Bob Sparkplug Holly. The returning Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake's
Rocky
back.
Plug.
He instills the first spanking of the punishment upon Hunter Hearst Helmsley as Jake beats Hunter. Hunter eats a DDT in that match. So there's the beginning of the punishment takes place for Hunter here on this one. We go to June 9th. Savio Vega defeats Party Marty Jannetty. So Marty's still hanging out. Savio gets a win there. On June 10th, a wild man Mark Merrow beats Skip. Owen Hart somehow beats Yokozuna, but Yoko's, obviously a shell of what he once was. And that kind of takes care of the first round matches. Then we got to the quarterfinals because we get to the semifinals at the actual pay-per-view. The first quarterfinal match takes place. Stone Cold Steve Austin beats Savio Vega. That match is, of course, a rematch from WrestleMania 12. Something else very important happened during that match, Tony. Do you know what happened in that Austin Vega match that is very important and redefines everything about Stone Cold Steve Austin?
No.
It is the first time the first time the stunner gets delivered to Savio Vega. Now there's some, I think it gets televised at some, like this gets, I don't know, there may have been another one earlier, but Vega's kind of been credited as being the first one to take the stunner. It doesn't look like it will look later on. There's no kick to the stomach to set up to get the guy's head down so that Austin could hit the move. But it's the first time that Stone Cold breaks out the stunner and transitions away from the $1 Million Dream into the Stone Cold Stunner. And of course, that becomes one of the top 5 best finishers of all time. I mean, you gotta throw it up there. It's hard.
One of the
hard to argue.
One of the smartest finishers of all time, where it's you're not like landing on your leg every time or doing this or that.
Or your hip, like poor Hulk Hogan does. But
right, that's what I meant. Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, that changed. So many things changed in the build, not just this tournament itself or the pay-per-view, but the build up to it. You got Stone Cold Stunner being born, that sort of thing. Mark Merrow defeats Owen Hart in the remaining quarterfinal match. Vader receives a bye in the quarterfinals due to Warrior and Goldust qualifying match, resulting in a double countout. So yeah, so let's see, you got and Jake Roberts beat JBL. I mean, sorry, he's not JBL yet. Bradshaw. So that leaves you with the final 4 of Austin, Roberts, Vader, and Mark Merrow. And so they set this up so you're going to end up with, in the first round or this first semifinal, we're going to have Austin versus Mark Merrow. And in the other one, you're going to have Roberts against Vader, which seems like an impossible task for old Jake the Snake Roberts, but we're going to see how that kind of turns out.
Well, he's got Jesus.
Yeah, you talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3. Anyway, we're going to get to that in a minute. But we're getting there. That is coming up. So that kind of gives you guys the backstory leading into King of the Ring 1996. We've got the rivalries, you got the undercard matches, you've got the 4 tournament, the semifinals. So you got 3 tournament matches to determine the King of the Ring. And we've got some really good stuff happening as well. Got anything to add to this thing before we jump into the actual card itself, Mr. Tunney?
Well, this is from my hometown.
I was going to get there. I wasn't there yet. I was going to get there.
Okay.
I promise you.
Do you want the dark match?
Yes. What was the dark match? Was it a tag team match or something?
Dark match? No, it was Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Oh, was it?
Who wins? He defeats Aldo Montoya. Do you know who Aldo Montoya is?
Didn't we talked about this once? Who is Aldo Montoya?
Just incredible.
Oh, that's right. Just incredible.
Which leads me to believe that we're already in the midst of the Paul Heyman, ECW, Vince McMahon relationship, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. So, man, fun stuff all the way around. So, like Tony said, though, this is taking place at June 23rd, 1996, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at the Mecca. Tony, did you ever go to the Mecca?
Well, plenty of times. So I was surprised to learn that this was at the Mecca. I thought this would have been at Bradley Center. So Bradley Center was built probably a few years before this by the Bradley family, which was intended to get a hockey team into Milwaukee, which didn't happen.
No, it didn't.
Which didn't happen. But Mecca Arena was a great place to go to. Went to plenty of Bucks games in the 80s there. Not a big, huge arena. The funny thing is Bradley Center is no longer there. That's gone. Fiserv Forum is a beautiful place. The Mecca Arena is still there. It's now Panther Arena. The Admirals play there, and UW Milwaukee Panthers basketball plays there. So it's a very nice arena. One huge bowl. So even if you're at the top, outer top, you can still see really well.
When you talk about Bradley Center, remember one of the biggest events that happened at the Bradley Center? And it's been a while since we talked about it, but that was the location where the Mega Powers exploded, because that was the place where Hogan and Macho took on the Twin Towers. When Macho got thrown on top of Liz and Hogan takes her to the back. Remember all this stuff? It's been a long time since we talked about it, but Hogan takes her into the back and, and you get that whole thing where Macho slaps Hogan in the face and beats the shit out of him in the back in the infirmary.
Which tells you kind of where they're at, right? Because look at how long ago was that from 1996?
89, 7 years.
Okay, so in 89, so Bradley Center was probably built like just before that. I thought it was early 90s, late 80s, but not much earlier than that. So Bradley Center can probably hold 12, 13,000. At that time, they were there. Now they regress, barely holds not even 9,000.
Yeah, what's the attendance on this? It's like 8,876.
8,700. Yeah, so that's pretty much a sellout at Mecca.
But it's like what we've talked about. This is definitely a downturn in things because of just the weird, it's not just that WCW is starting to really beat the shit out of WWE, and it's going to get worse. In about 2 weeks, things are going to get a lot worse for WWE before anything gets better. Nitro is doing what it's doing to WWE. They're feeling the crunch from Hogan and Savage, and now you've got the Outsiders are about to debut in WCW. Which is going to make things even worse. But it's a big difference. Big downturn in buys, big downturn in business. This is still, even though, like you're saying, 96 is a much better place for them to be. It's still, there's still a downturn in everything that's going on with WWE right now. And you raised a good point. This is the difference between Bradley Center and the Mecca and why they're at the Mecca. You got Vince McMahon, you got Jerry Lawler, and Owen Hart on commentary. It's like, wow. No, I'm sorry, not Jerry Lawler. Vince, JR, and Owen Hart on commentary.
Yeah. Boy, if it was just JR and Owen, that might have been really good.
Oh, God, would that have been great? Yeah. I mean, we're still a long ways away from Vince McMahon bowing out of the broadcast booth and becoming Mr. McMahon. He's still got about a year. But I don't hate this. I don't hate this broadcasting team for this event. I mean, Vince is Vince, JR and Owen Hart. Anytime you get Owen on commentary, it's kind of a good time, And there's no Owen solid, and there's no Bret Hart in this whole thing. So let's get to the first semifinal match. Semifinal match number 1. 30-minute time limit. Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on the Wild Man Mark Merrow with Sable.
There was a free-for-all match, though.
Was there? What was the free-for-all match?
The Body Donnas defeated the New Rockers, Leif Cassidy and Marty Jannetty.
Well, that's right. They were on there. Leif Cassidy and Marty. Good God.
Al Snow, Leif Cassidy.
That's right. Al Snow is Leif Cassidy. God, the things you forget till you actually go and watch these things back and you realize, hey, that guy looks awfully familiar. Al Snow, guest of the podcast, not several years ago. Shout out to Al.
Still doing his thing around here, I think. House of Hardcore
in Milwaukee.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Al
out in Waukesha.
Al was a great interview, and he's always a very funny guy. Very personable and very giving with his time, and it will always talk to you. So I'm a big Al Snow fan, that sort of thing. He's one of my faves. But anyway, getting back to this match, it is an excellent match. It is such a good match. I know that DJ and Rob Burnett and Jason over at the Mindless Wrestling Podcast, they did a watch along of this match not so long ago, if my fading memory serves me correctly. But it is an excellent fucking match, to be sure. Austin dominates the first half of it and then barely survives this aerial assault from Mero in the back half that leaves Austin bleeding badly from the mouth. Now, we know that Austin is going to go to the hospital after this match. It's 16 stitches in his mouth and come back and win the King of the Ring. You know, we always say, JR said Austin was the toughest son of a bitch around. There's a lot of truth to that. You know, this is not just kayfabe with Stone Cold Steve Austin. The guy survives this, his mouth getting ripped open. The guy survives a broken fucking neck in SummerSlam 1997 and still wins that match. We are talking, you can say, oh, it's all fake, it's all kayfabe, whatever. No, man, I would not want to get in a fight with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Even to this day, he still would whip my ass in the shape he's in. But anyway, you get this aerial assault. Austin is bleeding badly from the mouth. Austin is eventually going to catch Mark Mero with a hot shot type of maneuver. Austin is then going to hit the very early version. We talked about the first version of the stunner. This is a slight evolution of that, but not really. It's still a very early version of the Stone Cold Stunner. He gets the win and advances to the finals. It's a phenomenal match. And I think it was like, Mero was supposed to get some aerial maneuver where I know his foot just crushes Stone Cold in the mouth, and that's what busts him open. But yeah, you can see as soon as this happens, all that blood coming out of his mouth, and it's going to take 16 stitches to sew him back together and get him back in the match. Tunney, or get him back in time for the finals. Your thoughts on this match? Because I thought it was a phenomenal fucking match.
No, really good match. I mean, I think him and Mero, they were in WCW together, weren't they, at the same time? So they've been in the same circles together, I do believe.
Yeah, I think you're right. They had some experience.
So they had to send Austin down to Mount St. Mary's to get his lip, fessed up. It's crazy because, like, does he off the cuff what he's about to do if he's in the arena the whole time? Because he's gone and he gets back and they're just like, we'll get to that match eventually, but he gets kind of fed the, cliff notes of what's been going on because he's not in the arena. He literally leaves to go to the Mount St. Mary's, which is like 2 miles east. They're like in between the lake and where they're at. So really crazy, interesting story there.
And it is. And it's also on the other side of the fence, the story about Mark Mero and where he's going at this point. Because you got to remember, we talked about it last time. Mark Mero gets the first guaranteed contract in WWE history, right? I think that's something that people don't really understand, is that Mark Mero, during all this roster swapping that's going on between WWF at the time and WCW, Eric Bischoff had no problem giving guaranteed contracts with a lighter schedule, fewer dates, that sort of thing.
Wasn't his money.
Mero got,
wasn't his money.
No,
on the other hand,
Vince
10. Is the one dealing it out, and it's his money.
It is, and you're exactly right. But Mero's the guy who gets the first guaranteed contract. But you can tell just after a few months that Vince isn't exactly feeling it with Mark Mero. And this is Mark Mero's first televised loss in WWE. He's gonna have some success. I think he gets an IC title run at some point in time. But early on, Vince is not, he's not sold on this guy, and you can kind of see where this is going. As Vince is like, I don't know about this dude. Meanwhile, Austin is definitely on the come up at this point in time. And we're going to see it all come to a fruition in this event. But really awesome early match. Let's move to the second semifinal match. You got any other thoughts about this one, Tunney? Or nope? Okay. King of the Ring semifinal match number 2. Again, 30-minute time limit. Vader with Jim Cornette taking on Jake the Snake Roberts. It's not much of a match, though. Jake's going to go for the DDT. Vader grabs the ref, and the ref gets shoved to the ground. Vader then gets disqualified. Jake advances to the finals, but is the victim of a nasty post-match attack as Vader is going to crush Jake with at least 2 Vader bombs. So they came up with the easy way out on this thing, which is a part of what annoys me that we're still getting in 1996. These shitty non-finishes to progress the storyline in a very predictable manner. Because you're like looking at this and they ain't no way Jake Roberts is beating Vader. But there's a disqualification and it's like, you guys would know better, that sort of thing. Jake takes a pretty good ass whooping after this is over. Vader doesn't lose any steam from this. And the King of the Ring final is set. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Jake the Snake Roberts, with Stone Cold having a real injury and at a hospital, and Jake having a kayfabe injury And I'm almost wondering if they had that happen because they weren't really sure what the shit is going to happen with Austin at this point in time. Well, let's kind of like let's make it more believable and have Vader just crush the shit out of this dude. What'd you think of this whole situation, Tony?
You got to remember they don't even know what they have with Austin at this point, right? Like this is
They
just
don't.
this is almost just throwing at shit like the baloney at the sliding glass door and see which piece sticks, you know? Because it was going to be Hunter, and now all of a sudden they're pivoting here real quickly. So like you said, they don't really know, right? Like Jake, the whole divine intervention. What else can he overcome, right, in the final? And then Austin, what do we believe? Once we cut that promo, we will.
Yeah. Then we're going to know a lot more about what is happening with Stone Cold
You're
Steve
going to get
Austin.
that feeling of this might be a player.
It might be a player, exactly. You know, the whole thing is like, okay, I get what happened, but it's still kind of, you know, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. We'll just say it's fine, Tony, and we'll move on from there because, yeah. What else are you gonna say about this match? It's just kind of like, all right, it's it's the easy, most convenient way to get Jake to the finals, and that sort of thing. We then get this interesting match: the Godwins with Hillbilly Jim versus the Smoking Guns with Sonny for the WWF Tag Team Championships. Now, if I remember correctly, the Smoking Guns had beaten who'd they beat? Like the Body Donnas or somebody like that, and to get the titles back.
Yeah,
And
Skip and Zip, I think, right?
so they beat Skip and Zip, and as a result of that, Sonny had to end up being the Smoking Guns manager, if I remember this correctly. I think she was kind of on the line. You know, they had Dadass on the line as well during this match. I don't know.
Sounds like an indecent proposal to me.
It does. It does sound like an indecent proposal, but I have to look that up. But I do think that Sonny becomes the Smoking Guns manager because they won the titles back from who she was managing, which was Skip and Zip. But let's be honest, Sonny wasn't exactly known for her loyalty at this point in time, you know, that sort of thing. So you got to lean in. There it is. There it is. That's right. For you guys watching live, that is a PC Tutty trademark there. But anyway, so it's this match for the tag team championships. It's an okay match, I thought. Bart is going to miss hitting Henry with a diving leg drop. All four guys are going to end up in the ring as the ref is going to get what? Okay, so what happens though? The ref gets out of the ring, but remembers his boot. Oh no, I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you were going to say remembers he's got a 7-layer lasagna in the oven. He'll be right back. No?
That's right. So the ref is trying to get Henry Godwin out of the ring. Bart is going to remove his boot, clobbers Phineas in the back of the head. Billy makes the pin, and the Guns retain the gold. So you get to see the Smoking Guns here. Definitely Sonny's influence is very prevalent early on, and the Guns start to go down this path of being a heel tag team. It's debatable as to whether they were more effective as a heel team or a face team. This whole thing with them and Sonny isn't going to last very long, and that's okay. But Smoking Guns were like the best team in the tag team division during this whole new generation era. And they had the titles and then lost them so many damn times. It got hard to keep track of the whole thing. But I don't know. This was an okay match. The Godwins were just not one of those teams that did it for me. Smoking Guns were clearly the more talented team. Having Sonny in the corner doesn't hurt. I was okay with this match. I thought it kind of showcased the Guns, how they can be heelish when they want to be. What do you think of this whole thing, Tony?
This match kind of reminds me where we are in WWF/E tag team history. We're coming out of a golden era of tag team wrestling where it was like, you know, you had kind of Legion and Doom in and out. You had Heart Foundation, you had Demolition,
Bulldogs,
you had Rockers, you had Bulldogs, etc., etc. And now you're kind of with these cowboy/bumpkin farmer hillbilly gimmicks where we're almost going to be done with that real quick here, right? And the most hilarious thing about it is one of the guys out of the four in this match is going to go on to be in one of the greatest tag teams of all time that's completely different gimmick style and attitude of what they're portraying here with these two tag teams. So while there's two very talented tag teams in this match, it's such a contrast diversity of what we're about to embark on and kind of really a long ways of where we're come from as well too.
Oh, you're right. It is a downturn for sure in the tag team division. You got to remember that we're coming in at this point where you've got like Marty Jannetty and the 1-2-3 Kid were champions not that long ago. Just impromptu, just throw these guys together. Or Jannetty and Spark Plug Holly. And I mean, just like you raise a great point. We are no longer in the golden age of tag team wrestling. Remember like that first Survivor Series in '87 where they had the tag team elimination match? All those teams lined up on the apron was like a Hall of Fame class because you had the Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation. Strike Force was there back then, and you even had before that you had the Can-Am connection with your favorite Tom Zenk, because Tom Zenk was back around
you got
those.
Andre and Haku. I mean,
Yeah, the
all
Colossal
sorts of different-
Connection.
Yeah,
Demolition, Nasty Boys were there.
Valentine and
Howard-
Beefcake.
You had the Dream Team. You had the Power and Glory was there for a while. You had some really, really excellent tag teams, and the division is very depleted. You got to remember, we're still a ways away from Hardy Boys, a ways away from Edge and Christian. We're a ways away from the Dudleys, D-Generation X, even teams like Mick Foley and Cactus or Chainsaw Charlie, Terry Funk.
Yeah.
The Rockers were there. They're not there anymore. You got the new Rockers, like you said, which is Marty and just an ever-expanding role of rotating tag team partners. The Guns are clearly the top of the heap as far as tag teams go at this point in time, but it's still pretty lacking. But the Guns retain the tag team titles thanks to some minimal interference by Sonny, and off we go. From there, we get Jerry Lawler versus the Ultimate Warrior. This match is the definition of meh, that sort of thing. Warrior had a shoulder injury that I don't think would have made a fucking bit of a difference to this match. It wasn't going to go longer than.
Yeah, had a brain injury at this time.
Yeah, I mean, if Warrior's shoulder was fine, he wasn't going to deliver a 5-star class. This is not. Yeah, it's not like he is in the ring with early '90s Macho Man Randy Savage. He's not in there with Savage from '91 or Savage from '92, who could not only go, but could make the Warrior look fantastic in the process. He's in there with Jerry Lawler, who's like in his late 40s. I think he's like 46 at this point in time. Yeah, 46 years old. So he's not like Savage or even Hogan at this point in time, or some of the other guys, or Rick Rude, or some of the guys who could get a great match out of Warrior. I'm not saying air quoting great.
Jerry's not thinking about trying to set up a WrestleMania or SummerSlam payoff with Warrior either. He could really give a flying fuck. He's just there to collect his paycheck. He probably didn't even want to fucking work with him.
Right. And it makes you wonder, like, I mean, Warrior being in the tournament would have been a much bigger deal. But you could tell that Vince, even right then, he must have had some reservations about where are we going with this thing already. And Warriors, I mean, this is
why have a guy in the tournament when you get to the pay-per-view be one of the last 4 who's known to hold you up before matches? Like, no way. Like,
right.
you want to beat Jerry? Fine, whatever.
Right.
Get it done in 4 minutes.
Maybe make him kiss his own foot. I already did that. Never mind. But but yeah, like you're saying, this is actually Ultimate Warrior's final pay-per-view in WWE. Right here, this is it. This is the last pay-per-view that we ever get of the Ultimate Warrior, and I'm sure Vince was probably saying it's one too many. I let this go one too many times. Anyhow, we could talk about the match.
Can we?
Lawler,
Do we have to?
Well, if we've talked about King of the Ring '95 and Gonzalez versus Undertaker, we got to talk about this.
Ouch.
Lawler is going to badmouth your hometown, Tony. Milwaukee gets badmouth, and he talks shit about the Brewers too. Talk shit about the Brewers.
In '96, yeah, it's appropriate.
Yeah. He spends 3 minutes choking out the Warrior with tape from his wrists. This is how bad this match is. We get a 3-minute, it's not, I guess you can call it a rest spot, but like the match just started. Why does Warrior, it's Warrior. That's why he needs a rest spot. Jerry hits him with a pile driver. Warrior no-sells the shit out of this. It's very WrestleMania 12-ish. This is Jerry's best move. Warrior no-sells it. Hits a flying shoulder block and pins Jerry Lawler by again kneeling on his chest like he did the Hunter at WrestleMania 12. And it's pretty clear to me watching this match. This kind of bullshit was never going to last long. The crowd is they're still popping for the Warrior. Let's be real about this. The crowd is still very hot for the Ultimate Warrior at this point in time. They're still popping they still get all excited for the no-sell, but this is not going to work, Tony. Hunter put up with it. begrudgingly, and they try to talk him out of it. Jerry the King Lawler doesn't have a lot of stroke because he's at the end of his career, but he's still a Hall of fucking Famer. You are not going to have Ultimate Warrior kneeling on Shawn Michaels and winning the world championship. That ain't happening. Or Bret Hart, or Undertaker, or any of the big names. So this whole bullshit finish that he's doing here, not playing ball, and then you're going to get like a couple of months later, he gets into another argument with Vince over name, image, and likeness and all that kind of shit, trademarking, and it's all over. And I'm surprised it lasted 3 months this time, but the match is shit. But to me, it's just indicative of the bigger problem with the Warrior at this point in time. This is just never going to work.
I mean, it's Vince continuing to grasp at straws, like you said. We're at the point where Scott and Kevin are pretty much gone now. So, like, he's just trying to hold on to anything. Hogan is gone.
Yeah.
What's left that he had? Warrior, right? It's just ick, though. It really is. And Warrior never really has any good moment until he's inducted into the Hall of Fame from here on out.
Yeah. I mean, it is
the whole
unfortunate.
WCW thing was just horrible.
God damn. I try to forget that actually happened, but I know it did. But man, it's rough, dude, because it's like, good God. The whole seeing Hogan, seeing the Warrior in the mirror, I remember all that stuff. It's just so bad. It's just so bad. And I mean, and it just shows like the downward trajectory. When does that happen? Like 98 or something like that when Warrior shows up in WCW? Or
it's after the Sting. It's after the second Sting.
After Starrcade. After Starrcade. So that's 97. So yeah, I mean, it's just everything's just bad. But like you're saying, Vince is struggling to find something that's going to work. He doesn't realize he's got all the pieces in place. He's going to see it with Austin after this event. But yeah, the whole situation with Warrior here is just, yeah. It's like trying to find, trying to figure out, like, I don't know what's happening with these guys, but okay.
Much like WWF is about to, we should also move on from the Ultimate Warrior.
Yes, exactly. Let's move on from the Warrior there. So, man, let's get to something good though, because we've talked about how bad this Ultimate Warrior situation was. But let's move into something that's much better. You want to do that, Tony? Let's get to something that's much better.
Let's do it.
Mankind. We talked about this earlier. Mankind versus Undertaker. Undertaker's got Paul Bearer with him. This is the beginning of this is the beginning salvo of what? One of the greatest rivalries in WWE history easily. And it goes on for years.
Professional wrestling history.
Professional wrestling. Yeah, you're right. This goes on for years. And it started, we talked about it earlier. It started before we ever get here, but this is really where it really amps up. 2 years. And this is like, look, exactly 2 years before this is like we're talking about the greatest rivalry in pro wrestling history, one of them. Because we're a full 2 years before their most iconic and famous battle at the exact same event in a different city, albeit, but the rivalry really gets going right here with this war. And this match is a war. There is no other way to describe it. It is an absolute war. Mankind shows everybody. This is what we were talking about earlier with Undertaker actually getting an opponent who could really test him. He shows just how dangerous an opponent he is. For once, it is Undertaker who can't keep an opponent down. We always see this in Undertaker matches. He's sitting up. Nobody can keep Undertaker down. This time the role is reversed. He can't keep Mankind down. Mankind inflicts all sorts of damage on Undertaker, including like this nasty stump puller pile driver, then fights, Undertaker fights back, but it's a mistake, and I'm recording mistake, by Paul Bearer that proves to be fatal for Undertaker because Paul Bearer is going to try to hit Mankind in the head with the urn. Mankind ducks. Paul Bearer hits Undertaker instead. Mankind will apply the mandible claw and renders Undertaker unconscious. Mankind gets a huge and stunning victory here. Now, this is going to, of course, progress down the line with the true machinations of what Paul Bearer was doing in this match. It seems like a mistake at this point. We know that is not the case, that this is very intentional, but we're not there yet. But still, dude, there's no chloroform. Ooh, chlorophyll, something. Yeah, there's nothing of that going on in this match.
Photosynthesis.
Yeah, it's something stinks out here. You can tell the stench. Yeah. None of that's going on in this match. This is the first time that we see anybody really put Undertaker down. One-on-one. Yes, 12 guys beat the shit out of Undertaker at Royal Rumble a few years ago, shoved him in the casket in the match with Yokozuna. That's one thing. And yes, he gets hit in the head with an urn. But this is the first time an opponent ever took Undertaker down one-on-one, put him down, kept him down with that mandible claw. Undertaker rendered unconscious. Ref's got to call the match, and Mankind, it's a massive win. And it's so funny that we talk about with Undertaker all these wins that he's had, and none of them were, except the win against Diesel at WrestleMania 12, none of them really stood out. Maybe the second casket match against Yoko, because we got Chuck Norris involved, which is always good. But this is like Undertaker gains more in this defeat than he does in a lot of his victories leading up to this point, right?
Well, there's someone that can finally match his dark, sinister mentality, right? And someone that almost enjoys being beaten by the Undertaker. Like, the more the Undertaker gives Mankind, the more Mankind enjoys it. The more he comes back with some more darker depths of himself that he didn't know he could reach with him. Like, these two guys make each other mythical, right? We're not just talking about getting to a Hell in a Cell. We got to have these types of matches. We're going to get to the Boiler Room matches. That's what really makes this rivalry, is the Boiler Room. So
Yeah.
it's just, these two characters were literally, Mankind was brought in for the Undertaker, right? So it just works. It just works.
Yeah, he really was. I like what you said there. Mankind brought in for the Undertaker because it redefines everything about Undertaker, and it really takes him it builds to his legend. And what's amazing to me is, go ahead.
Different dimensional depth, like at different points. You know, he was just this guy that was unstoppable, and he had this guy with the urn, and now, well, shit, there's someone that actually can take what he's doing and make him think a little bit, and maybe he's not as tight with Paul Bearer and things of that nature, and oh wow, maybe he is susceptible to some things, you know, with this crazy ass guy, right? It made you ask more questions that you never really asked about the Undertaker.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? We never got all the Undertaker Mankind matches, and all of them were bangers. They never fought at WrestleMania. That would have been interesting if they had done a WrestleMania match between Undertaker and Mankind, because you would have thought, hey, the streak's in trouble. The streak might be in trouble here. But they never fight at WrestleMania. I wonder why they didn't didn't go down that path. They didn't need to. Obviously, they didn't need, because like you're saying, they got the Boiler Room Brawl. We got Hell in a Cell coming up. We got a bunch of iconic Undertaker Mankind matches, but they never sent them together at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of Mick Foley's storylines leading into all that all the time. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Well,
Mick Foley, I guess, biggest WrestleMania is 2000, and then after
when he's
that,
in the Fatal 4-Way.
Yeah, and then after that, it'd probably be when he had the big match with Edge.
Yeah. I mean, you think about Mick, not a lot of high-profile Mania matches, not like Undertaker did, but these other ones.
He had the tag team match with Chainsaw Charlie, I think, against the New Age Outlaws, the dumpster match.
And The Rock at WrestleMania 20. So, I mean, there is that. So, all right, maybe he's got some other stuff going on. But for a guy who just relatively made his debut in WWE at this point in time, you can't put somebody over any better than that, can you? You beat The Undertaker. That's like, Jesus. You got to say that's.
Well, I mean, and he's already been on, In Your House and things of that nature, and proven he can go with the best of the best, including Shawn Michaels. So,
And we've seen him in WCW. You saw him in ECW. You know what this guy is capable of. He's going to be a huge part of the Attitude Era, especially one of the greatest, the moment that flipped the Monday Night War into a different trajectory entirely. Mick Foley is at the center of that. It's going to put some butts in some seats, Tony. Let's get on to the next match. Ahmed Johnson versus Goldust with Marlena for the Intercontinental Championship. Some interesting stuff happens leading into this match. One of the more controversial aspects of this thing is there's in the lead up to the match, you had this angle where Goldust I don't know if you remember this, Goldust was going to give Ahmed Johnson CPR, right? And all the times that they practiced this spot leading into this thing, Goldust always put his hand over Ahmed Johnson's mouth so he would kiss his hand and no one would know the difference. But in the actual lead up to this match, there is, let's see what happens. So there's like the Pearl River, he was laying prone on a stretcher backstage. Goldust had done something to him, and Goldust was going to give him unnecessary mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And like I said, he was supposed to place his hand over his mouth, but he doesn't. And Goldust full on lip to lip. And anybody who knows anything about Ahmed Johnson's true personality, boy, this was the wrong thing to do to him. It infuriates him to no end. He wants to actually kill Dustin Runnels. Goldust was smart to get out of there before this stuff happened. How these guys managed to work together at any standpoint, I'm not really sure, but we'll talk about the match. The match, it's way too long and it's way too slow.
15
That's
and a half minutes.
Yeah, that's too long for guys like this. And I don't mind a 15-minute match. Don't get me wrong, guys. I don't mind a 15-minute match, but not for these two guys, not for this point in the card. And it just plodded along. I don't know if you felt the same way, Tuddy. It just felt like a grind to me. Tuddy's saying yes. Goldust is going to slow Johnson down with a lot of solid wrestling holds. He has him beat after applying a sleeper hold, but he inexplicably releases the hold so he can give Ahmed CPR. So we go back to this fucking spot, right? We go back to this whole thing. And an irate Ahmed Johnson beats the hell out of the bizarre one, plants him with a spine buster, hits the Pearl River plunge, and Ahmed Johnson captures the Intercontinental Championship. So that's kind of cool. I mean, we are still, I don't know. Well, Vader's in WWE at this point in time. So Ron Simmons, I think, has already been the first Black World Champion by this point in time, right? Because obviously Vader dropped. Okay, so, and this is still not, we still don't have the first Black World Champion in WWE. But, you got a Black Intercontinental Champion here with this match as Ahmed Johnson beats Goldust. And a lot of it centers around this stupid CPR spot, which makes no goddamn sense. But anyway, like I said, there's elements of the match that are okay. I have no real problem with Ahmed Johnson being the Intercontinental Champion. But man, this match just felt like a grind and it drug on and it just was like, this is too slow. I didn't feel this match. I'm glad Ahmed got a run with the IC title, but I was just like,
Do you know how he...
Ahmed?
Yeah.
No. How does he eventually lose it?
And this is how I know Ron Simmons had already won the WCW World Championship, because in August 12th of 1996, he forfeits the title after being attacked by Farouk debuting in an 11-man battle royal.
There you go. And Farouk, for those of you guys who don't know, was Ron Simmons. I mean, this is an interesting stat though. Ahmed was the first Black man to hold any WWE championship since, good God, 1983 to 84, when Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas.
I was going to say Rocky Johnson.
Yeah, so and I don't want to make this a racial thing. I really don't want to make this a racial thing, but you can't ignore the fact that you've got a 12-year gap between any African American holding gold in WWE. 12 years. That's not good. That's not a good look, man. Not a good look at all. But Ahmed breaks through. He's the one who gets that, and it'll get better, sure. But I don't know. After the match was over, after the pay-per-view, Ahmed Johnson won the championship. Ahmed Johnson told a story. This is interesting. He returned to his car after leaving Milwaukee, after leaving the Mecca, and somebody had keyed, of course, a racial slur into part of his car, sending him into an incendiary, and I'm reading this, incendiary fit of rage. Ahmed confronted Vince McMahon about this, but Vince is like, fuck, dude, I don't know who did it. What do you want me to do about it? But it just kind of, Ahmed was a very proud Black man. There's no doubt about that. And the stuff that Goldust pulled on him combined with this shit, we all know that Ahmed Johnson has his fair share of backstage issues. None of this stuff helped, did it, Tony?
No, I mean, I don't condone, anybody vandalizing anybody's property, and even more so, racial slurs is even worse. But Ahmed was difficult.
Keyed into your car. Yeah, keyed into your car.
Ahmed was, just speaking strictly about like professional wrestling and politics and backstage and stuff, like it just comes across as he just didn't get it. You can draw the line and have ground you stand on, but at some point you got to understand you need to work with people in the back, and he refused to really work with basically anybody.
Dude, think about the roster this time. You got Warrior, who won't work with anybody. Ahmed Johnson's not much better as far as working with people, and they're at the top of the card.
It's funny Vince didn't send Warrior and Ahmed Johnson both out there in a match and tell them both they're winning
and let them figure it out. Yeah. You guys figure this shit out.
No. Just just separate meetings. No, you're going over, and then they go out there. Let's see what that looks like.
Yeah, that would have been fun to have those guys try and sort that mess out. Ew. I could only imagine that would have been ugly stuff, man. But Ahmed Johnson is the Intercontinental Champion at the conclusion of this match with Goldust. Jim Ross interviews Brian Pillman, who is clearly disturbed. Another guy coming over. The rosters are switching. Brian Pillman coming from WCW over there. Pillman clearly disturbed. He's going to challenge the entire WWF roster. Bring it on. All you bitches, bring it all on. So it's like, wow. All right, let's get into the final match. It is the King of the Ring final. Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on Jake the Snake Roberts. We've already talked about it. Austin comes back to the arena having his mouth stitched up, 16 stitches. He's back there. The former Hollywood Blonde members kind of acknowledge each other as you know, Austin is coming to the ring. Pillman's going in the other direction. Austin makes his way to the ring. Vince tells us, this is where Vince clues us in. He went to the emergency room and got 16 stitches in his match after his mouth, after his match with Mark Merrow. So Vince just pulls back the fourth wall right here. Fuck kayfabe. And it's a smart move by Vince. It's absolutely brilliant move by Vince. You could see it, and it adds an element to Austin's character right away. This tough motherfucker, 16 stitches in his mouth. And you're looking at this, and this is still a time when, you know, there's lots of shades in gray as far as like, is this real? Is this not? But you see it right there. And it's like, okay, this guy has really got something going on. And Austin 316 is going to get born in this match. Jake is going to fight valiantly. Even after Gorilla Monsoon contemplates stopping the match. Jake's fighting his ass off, but he's getting his ass handed to him by Stone Cold Steve Austin. Gorilla, like I said, stopped. He's thinking about stopping the match. Austin is eventually going to hit Jake with the Stone Cold Stunner, becomes the King of the Ring, and then, of course, he cuts one of the most famous promos of all time. There's not a whole lot to the match, of course, because we know Jake's well overmatched in this whole thing. But the whole idea about the iconic promo in Austin 316, you know, as Austin got to the gorilla position before the match, he's talking to Michael Hayes. Michael Hayes is saying, look, I'm going to be the one to do the coronation interview. And Michael Hayes is the one who told him that earlier in the night, Jake Roberts had invoked his religious faith in his own promo talking about the match. And Austin was then inspired to turn this whole thing on its fucking head. And Austin, of course, was a big football fan. And this is, of course, a time and place where the John 316 signs were all over football stadiums everywhere. Stone Cold recognized that, and he took what Jake had done. And Austin 316 says, you know, you talk about your Psalms, talk about your whatever, your Bible. Austin 316 says, I just whipped your ass. And nothing was ever the same after that. Then, you know, Austin's still a heel at this point in time. As soon as he said that, he turned into anti-hero. And everything started to change, right? And then the Austin 316 shirts or signs started to show up everywhere. It was the signs first, you're right. And then after the signs started showing up, then WWE, the machine, got this idea, hey, let's turn this into a shirt. And the next thing you know, it's selling out everywhere. And then everybody's showing up in arenas with Austin 316 shirts. Yeah, Austin doesn't turn into a full-fledged face until WrestleMania 13 and the double turn. But he is the first. I mean, Savage had some of that going on, yeah, but not to this extent. Where Austin is the first anti-hero in WWF that I can really think of who got this sort of like organic following behind him. There's a real organic push that happens with this anti-hero. I'm struggling to remember anybody else who had, like I said, Savage had that undercurrent even after he turned on Hogan, where a lot of people didn't want to cheer against him, but it wasn't like this, where somebody who's still clearly a heel and he's really not a face and he's got this heelish elements, but people gravitated towards that. And Austin's the first one who does it. He does it better than anybody else, but he will not be the last because you get to see this thing replicated with The Rock. You get to see it happen with Triple H. You get to see it happen with Undertaker. It happens repeatedly that the Attitude Era is filled with anti-heroes that people just gravitate to because they're sick of this new generation shit. Austin is the first one to do it, and it all starts here with this Austin 316 promo. So I go to you, Tony. Again, not much about the match. Jake was just well overwhelmed, and that's okay. That's okay. It's everything that happens afterwards and just the fortuitous nature of Austin winning this tournament in the first place, and then talk about taking a bull by the horns and taking the maximum advantage of the opportunity presented to him. Dude, everything changes after this night.
It's so great because you talk about the Broken Skull sessions where basically Austin's like, yeah, you know, find that part of you that you can accentuate and turn up to 11 that's going to connect with the crowd. And that's what he did, right? Like, you talk about the ultimate anti-hero. First, to kick it off, he's like going against your religion right in your face. And then Vince is smart enough to see that the only thing that the boss, everybody hates their boss, right? Everybody wants to rebel against that establishment, right? First it's that religious establishment, and then it's the boss and that establishment. And Austin's just perfect for it. And we know that now. They didn't know that then. We're just discovering it. I'll say this: it'll be 30-year anniversary this summer that Stone Cold was born here in Milwaukee at King of the Ring. Why not bring King of the Ring back to AmFam Field? We could definitely break an attendance record there if you wanted to for King of the Ring. Just putting it out there, Hunter. Would love to see that here. But yeah, like Austin, King of the Ring, when it's supposed to be Hunter, it's just an amazing thing that happened. While Jake's doing the Bible thumping thing, we turn it into the most iconic t-shirt ever. It's Austin 316 on the front, a smoking skull on the back.
Yeah, I would love for them to give King of the Ring a true like Big Five event, right? Like they used to. I mean, it could be the Big Six now because we got Money in the Bank, of course. But if you're gonna do Royal Rumble in Saudi, why not bring King of the Ring back to I'd love to see them bring it to Milwaukee and have Austin be there for the 30th anniversary of this whole thing. Dude, give it to me. Give it to me. You have King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring. Let's make it a real event. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't.
Like, you got a roof, so you can have the event regardless. You can fit 40,000+ there, so why not?
Yeah, I mean, and it's June, so it might be you could possibly leave the roof open, but maybe not. But if you don't need to,
oh no,
then
you likely
why?
you likely would. It would June. It'd probably be in the 70s at night, 60s.
Yeah, I would love to see that happen, man. Let's get King of the Ring back to being like a marquee event, especially because I mean they've been doing that the last few years. King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring in Saudi. Let's bring it back to American soil. If you're going to give them the Royal Rumble, let's do something cool for the American fans or even Canada. But Milwaukee would be optimal. That's for sure.
It's close to Canada.
That's true. That's true. It is very close to Canada, just across the border. So you can get oot and a boot out there. Let's move to the main event of King of the Ring 1996, the British Bulldog with Jim Cornette and Diana Hart-Smith versus Shawn Michaels with Jose Lothario for the WWF Championship. Mr. Perfect was supposed to be the guest referee, handpicked by Jim Cornette, supposed to be the guest ref, but Gorilla Monsoon declares that he's going to be the referee outside of the ring, and we're going to have a normal referee inside of the ring. Leading into this whole thing, an interesting side story is that the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, is in negotiations with WCW to go to WCW. He's pissed off about the storyline because the original storyline had his wife basically propositioning Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels being the man of virtue, which of course in 1996, no, that was not Shawn Michaels. Shawn being the man of virtue, rebuffing her advances, and this leading to, then she was going to say that Diana was going to tell Davey Boy, Shawn came on to me and I said no. So it's like, good fucking God, what kind of storyline is this? You've portraying Diana Hart-Smith to be this skanky slut out here hitting on Shawn Michaels, even though she's married. Shawn being this virtuous choir boy well before that actually happens, saying, oh no, Davey, I would never do that to you. Davey might as well practically getting cucked out here, for fuck's sake. I mean, Jesus Christ. So Davey was not happy about this. I don't blame him. Eventually, this whole thing works out. They abandon this storyline, and Davey Boy Smith, I think he re-signs with WWE rather than go to WCW for $250K a year. So not bad. I mean, hey, I'll take $250,000 a year if I'm going to stay there. So it's a good deal. A good deal. And I mean, the British Bulldog and Shawn Michaels have a long, storied history with each other. They really do, because you think about Shawn beating Davey Boy for the Intercontinental Championship on Saturday night's main event, which I think is the last time that's happened, where the IC title changed hands on Saturday night's main event. Davey Boy thinking he beat Shawn at Royal Rumble 1995, only to...
It just happened.
Yeah, that's right. Who won the IC title? Was it? I forget.
Dom beat Shawn.
Well, that was Survivor Series. I'm talking about Saturday night's main event.
I thought he beat him at Saturday night's main event.
Who, Dom or John?
No, John beat Dom at Saturday
He beat him at Raw. I thought he beat him at Raw, didn't he?
What was it, Raw?
I thought it was Raw. I thought it was a Monday Night Raw. Anyway, but
you
had that. You had that
Never mind. Continue on. Never mind.
If the last two, and Davey Boy had thought he'd beaten Shawn, only to realize Shawn's both feet didn't hit the ground. Shawn won the Royal Rumble. They had the iconic match at In Your House where the double pin. So these guys are very familiar with each other. They always have a good match with each other. And this one is no different, man. It's an excellent match. It's maybe a touch too long, but probably necessary in the grand scheme of things. Unlike Ahmed and Goldust, had no problem with this match going how long did this go, Tony?
This was 26 and a half minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe you could have cut 5 minutes off, had it 21 minutes, but it was likely necessary after what happened In Your House with the double pin. You needed to get some sort of definitive finality to this thing. Davey, of course, he's again going to come very close to winning the big one, but Shawn is just too good. He's going to flatten Bulldog with a flying elbow drop and puts him away with sweet chin music to retain the championship. A very upset Owen. Owen is still on commentary at this point in time. Go ahead, Tony.
No, keep going.
So Owen is still on commentary. Owen is obviously very upset. Bulldog is very upset. They take out Shawn in this post-match attack, at least until Ahmed Johnson, the new Intercontinental Champion, shows up to level the playing field. Later, another member of Camp Cornette is going to show up and is going to significantly tip the scales in the favor of Camp Cornette. That is until, of course, the Ultimate Warrior hits the ring, shoves Vader off the top rope, sends Milwaukee into a frenzy. I will admit that.
Yeah.
The Warriors' appearance here sent Milwaukee into an absolute frenzy. It was a fucking phenomenal way to close the show with Shawn, Warrior, and Ahmed Johnson all standing there. You got the two main champions standing there and the Ultimate Warrior with them triumphant. I don't know if you could actually end the show much better than this, to be honest with you, Tony. All my complaints about the Warrior notwithstanding, he still elicits an electrifying reaction from the crowd at this point in time. This was one of the best endings from 1996, I felt. This whole fracas at the end and the way it ended with those three guys in the ring together. And you think at this point in time, man, what's going to happen over the rest of the summer with these three? Well, one of them's going to be gone. And the other one, we're going to see how that goes down. But that is the end of King of the Ring 1996. Your thoughts on the main event, Tony, and Shawn Michaels beating the British Bulldog to retain the championship here?
No, one of two unbelievable matches on this card. The Mark Merrow Steve Austin match was pretty freaking good too. It's interesting because do you add British Bulldog to that conversation of guys who probably should have won a world championship, like Scott Hall, Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude, Jake Roberts, etc., right?
Right. Yeah, you could. I mean, he was, I think he was European champion at this point in time, wasn't he? I don't remember exactly, but Davey, of course, his biggest win of his career, of course, was SummerSlam 92 and beating Brett at Wembley. No dispute about that. But I think you got a good point that him, Jake, Rick Rude, guys like that who, Mr. Perfect, you could add him to the list as well. Guys who never got the world championship and probably should have. Scott Hall, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think you can definitely, Owen is another one you could maybe put into that conversation.
Owen's interesting because I think if we don't lose Owen, and he sticks around, he is easily, he's like Foley then in the Attitude Era, I think. You know what I mean? Where he can play like a big range of characters.
Yeah, I think like you're saying, man, I think if Owen doesn't die in 99 and they start getting to the point where they're hot potatoing that title, Owen wasn't going anywhere. I don't think he wasn't going to WCW. He had no interest in going down there. He was going to stay put where he was.
He had already stayed through all the other shit.
Once Vince got tired of this whole Blue Blazer bullshit, which ultimately killed him. Yeah, I could see Owen might have got a run as the world champion. I mean, everybody else was back then. So, what did you think of the end of this whole thing with all these guys with with Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson, and Warrior standing there at the end?
Well, he's trying to, Vince is trying to get, the rub, the association, right? Warrior, Ahmed Johnson, and Shawn Michaels. And really trying to get Ahmed Johnson over more than anything. He just never could because no one wanted to work with him in the back.
Dude, if you can't get the rub off the Warrior at this point in time and Shawn Michaels, I mean, what are you going to do, man? But that brings us to the end of King of the Ring 1996. Tony, you have a cage match handy to see what they scored on this thing? What did they give King of the Ring 1996?
7.32.
7.3?
Yeah, the Austin Merrill match got 7.17, Mankind
Yeah.
Undertaker 7.21, and the world title match at the end 7.85.
So I've actually got this. I'll give mine first and then you can give yours. I've got this at a 7.75 out of 10. 7 3/4. Look, you got the iconic birth of Austin 316. That carries this, even without the great matches that are on here, carries this to another echelon entirely. Like you said, we got a tremendous main event because Bulldog and Shawn was an awesome match. Mankind Undertaker, awesome match. The beginning of that rivalry. And like you're saying, Mark Merrow and Stone Cold Steve Austin was a fucking phenomenal match as well. So you've got three legit bangers, really good matches on this card. Then you add on one of the most iconic moments in WWF WWE history that happens at this event. Yeah, I'm coming in a little bit higher than cage match, but not by much. There are some duds on here, sure. You got the Ahmed Johnson Goldust thing we talked about, the Godwins and the Guns, the Jake Vader nonsense, that sort of thing. Overall, it's a tremendous card, absolutely tremendous card. What are you giving this one, Tony?
I mean, it's definitely an iconic PLE PPV in history. We talked about the three really good matches, some not so great matches. Obviously, the iconic promo, the birth, and everything. I got to give it a 7.
Oh, that's pretty good for you. Anybody listening or watching along with us right now, Tony is a 7 out of 10. That's pretty damn good. That's pretty strong. That's going to do it for King of the Ring 1996. On the next episode, the next installment of the Big Five Project, we take our first official side quest, Tony, as we will go just a couple weeks later, chronologically speaking, in 1996, down to Florida in an entirely different promotion. WCW, Bash at the Beach 96. Why are we deviating from the Big Five Project? You really aren't asking us that. Who is the third man? Who is the third man? But so that will be our first official side quest that we take for a very good reason, because this is when the Monday Night War goes from kind of smoldering to Mount St. Helens. It's this massive explosion. But I will say this, before we get to that next installment of the Big Five Project, some other stuff is going to happen between now and then. We are going to get an episode of Unidentified History here before the end of the year, I hope. That's my plan, because we want to do that and kind of talk about some of the biggest stories in UAPs and UFOs this year, because it's been a massive year on that front. But before we come back to pro wrestling, we got this little thing that we got to do, Tony, called the Swaggy Awards, the 11th annual Swaggy Awards, man. They are coming up here very soon. Very soon. That's the next thing that we got going here on the Attitude of Aggression Wrestling Podcast. The 11th annual Swaggy Awards, 2 parts, like we've done the last few years. You won't want to miss this. There's probably a lot of John Cena going to be involved in the 11th annual Swaggy Awards. That is my guess on this whole thing. Are you excited? 11 years of this stuff, Tony. It's amazing that it's been going for 11 years.
It's been another great year. We always have a great time with the Swaggies, and it's not just your typical awards. We dive deep. We have a great panel, and we have a good time. So should be another great double Swaggy session.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. We got some great categories. I don't know how much we'll shake it up. I don't know who will be involved this year. I mean, we're going to see what we can come up with. Hopefully we get our good friend Kenny Killa to come back on. Hopefully we get guys like Ray Cash, AJ Velaz. Hopefully we can keep DJ away from holiday parties and his modeling career, miniature models, not his modeling career. Or maybe that too. You never know. Give him a whiskey and a hammock and DJ, just turn him loose. Get out of the way. But the 11th annual Swaggy Awards are coming up. We will be doing those before we come back to the Big Five Project. I can't wait, because it is always a fun time. And, we had our decade last year, our 10-year anniversary. Now we get into the second decade. It should be a great show. But until then, Tony, can you let people know where can they check you out on social media if they want to see all the cool stuff that the one and only PC Tunney is doing? And make sure you plug the newest addition to the PC Tunney podcasting family.
Well, yeah. Well, you and I, we ventured into that first episode of Everyone Loves Pizza. So check that out. Follow me at PC Tunney. We interviewed Mark Militz. He's a caddy up at Whistling Straits, a world-renowned golf resort here in Wisconsin. Everything Chairshot Radio Network, all your favorite streaming platforms, thechairshot.com. Tons of great coverage there. Follow me at PC Tunney. On the X is probably where you're going to get the most action there. And I always enjoy working with my my podcasting bestie over here, Dave, and everything Attitude of Aggression. Don't worry, DWI Podcast will be back next week.
I feel better that you got a chance to talk some wrestling here, Tony. You got to talk John Cena this week. It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
So I'm glad that you were here. I'm
glad people could see me.
Yeah, that's right. Make sure you guys check out WWE did a great tribute video to John Cena with Temper Trap's Sweet Disposition, which honestly did bring a tear to my eye. It really did. It was emotional. Tomorrow night on the Cock or Peacock, however you want it. That's one thing. Before we get out of here, let me just ask you one last thing for the people watch, because this is important to anybody watching right now. What happens to the library on Peacock? It's going away at the end of the month. It's a big deal, obviously, for what we're doing here on the Big Five Project. Is that going? What is your feeling? Is that going to YouTube? Is ESPN going to get it? Is Netflix going to get it? You know, this whole Netflix Warner Brothers merger that may or may not be happening is all in, sent everybody into a scurrying sort of pace right now. But what's your gut instinct? What happens with the library?
Great question. Is there a chance it stays on Peacock too? Right?
You would.
I don't know. It's gotta you think it's gonna end up somewhere. My hope is that it ends up somewhere, because I have all the subscriptions. What I don't want to have happen is that certain things are available at certain times on the vault. I want it to be available. So we'll see.
Yeah, we need that on-demand stuff. I don't want to go in here and just have to hey, guys, when are you going to show Bad Blood? That sort of thing. I don't want to do that. For 11 years now, ironically, not so ironically, the length of time we've been doing the shows, we've been able to access anything we wanted to at any time we wanted to on demand. If they want to do a separate YouTube channel, migrate whatever remains of the network to YouTube, I don't give a shit. Will I pay extra? I'm already paying for YouTube Premium. Will I pay a little bit extra to have that? Yes. I'll say that right now. I would do that to have, to have access to the library, because it's a big deal for me. But we'll see what happens. That's my biggest concern is at the end of the month, it all goes away. And I want to know what happens to that library.
I think it goes to ESPN.
They have the platform for it. I mean, I would think, they really do. Or ESPN or Netflix. I don't care. One of the two. YouTube's fine, but,
we'll see.
They're going to make you have a premium tier for that. But anyway, that's for the next time. That is going to do it for this episode of the Attitude of Aggression, or at least the Big Five Project. Of course, I'll fill in some stuff on the front and back end of this before the episode comes out finally. Tony, thank you so much, my friend, for coming on, talking to me about the great John Cena, covering King of the Ring 1996. You will see us pretty soon, as we will be back for some unidentified history over on the UFO side. And then the 11th annual Swaggy Awards coming at you very soon, probably either the end of this year or the very beginning stages of January. We're going to get that done. Who's going to leave with all the virtual hardware this year? You will see. But until next time, wrestling fans, aggressionaholics, everybody watching on the live stream, you guys stay aggressive. Do it with attitude. We will catch you soon for the 11th annual Swaggy Awards. That is what's coming up next. Until next time, peace.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey, everybody. How is everybody doing here? I made this announcement pretty without a whole lot of build-up or anything like that. Main reason I'm going live here this afternoon is a couple reasons. I wanted to test out to actually see if this live stream now is showing up with the actual name of the live stream, because it is. There you go. That's always been we haven't been able to figure that out so far, how to do this situation to get this to post with the actual title. Instead, it was always just saying, welcome to our live show, so forth and so on. And now it looks like on X, it's been fixed. Let's see about over on YouTube, if that's been fixed as well. Let's see. All right. Kind of looking at this real quick. What's going on? Live stream. Yep, sure looks like it. Quick live stream. We are live. So kind of tuning in there. Yep. All right. So all that stuff's been fixed here. And that makes me feel a lot better, because every time we've been going on here and and trying to do this, and it always comes out at this as this weird, just welcome to our live show. It doesn't tell a whole lot. All right. So with that out of the way, the real reason I wanted to come on here and record this is this will be the back end of the episode we recorded the other night, which was where PC Tunney and I were on here and we were talking about John Cena's final match before it happened. And we also, of course, did the latest installment of the Big Five Project, which had our review of King of the Ring 1990. That was on there as well. So wanted to come on here now to talk about John Cena's last match, because did talk about that. You will hear, we got an episode of the Four Corners podcast, myself and Patrick O'Dowd, and that's going to be coming out tomorrow morning. And this episode of Attitude of Aggression that I'm kind of putting together will come out probably later on today, tomorrow, probably Wednesday at the absolute latest. But wanted to kind of touch bases on, give you my thoughts on John Cena's last match. So we had Saturday night's main event, which by and large was a pretty good card. I thought, you got the Cody Rhodes Obafemi match, which was very good. Obafemi is obviously on his way to being a big star. And the fact that he stood up to Drew McIntyre, of course, Drew, who likes to ruin things, ruined that match as well. And that's all fine. That's all great. Sol Ruca and Bayley, I gonna Barry Horowitz myself here, guys. Pat myself on the back, because I have been on the Sol Ruca train for a very long time now. I mean, like the first time I saw her do that Soul Snatcher, and I know when we first started seeing her doing that, it was one of these things where, what we were concerned about in the early days, that it was so dependent on the positioning of the other person. And I think we've talked about this on other shows as well. So it was very dependent on her having the other person in the right position. But now she's gotten to the point, I think we mentioned this the other night, she can hit that Soul Snatcher on anybody at any time. And beyond that, just her athleticism and the things she can do in the ring, you got to see it on full display here with in this match with Bayley. And it was a very big performance from Sol Ruca in that match. So that was cool. She's obviously going to be a big star when she does get to the main roster on a full-time basis. So, you had that going on. Beyond that, the tag team match was fine for what it was. You got to showcase Siobhan Evans and Leon Slater a little bit. They obviously weren't going to dethrone AJ Styles and Dragon Lee in that match, and that's okay. But John Cena's last match. So the entrance, of course, is iconic. Last time, switching places with the cameraman Stu, that was over there. That was kind of cool to watch that, of course. So you got that. You got to see him run down to the ring that last time. The match itself was I thought it was a good match. John took a real beating in that match. My wife was watching it. She wasn't so thrilled with the match and obviously the outcome, but there's a big aspect of this match that you need to get into. There's a side of it that is like, from my standpoint, which is, part of me is watching it from the standpoint of a wrestling podcaster and a wrestling analyst who's been doing this for like 11 years now, right? So there was a big part of it that involved that aspect of things, watching it from that side of the fence. But there is also, of course, the big part of me that's watching it as a fan, as a pro wrestling fan. And that's when this stuff is at its absolute best, when it can rope you in as a podcaster and an analyst and somebody who looks at this thing critically, as we've done for over a decade now, and also appeal to you as a fan. And I thought this match between John Cena and Gunther did a great job of that. I mean, when I was talking with Patrick about it, I was saying how there were some places as the match went on where the wrestling analyst side of me, the podcaster, knew there was no chance in hell that John Cena is winning that match. None. No chance. But the wrestling fan in me, they roped you in enough where he kept fighting and kept coming back and kept fighting and kept coming back. You started to think maybe they're going to let John go out with a win. That's, of course, thinking with your heart and not your head, and that sort of thing. At the end of the day, there was no real doubt in anybody's mind who really, watches this stuff critically and that sort of thing, that this was going to end any way other than the way it did end up, which was with Gunther defeating John Cena. Now, the end, you get into the ending part of this thing and how the match ended with John tapping out. And we had talked about it, PC Tunney and I, when we did the kind of, I don't know if you call it a preview, but we talked about it the other night. And I was kind of under the impression that it would be a submission, but it wouldn't be a tap out. It would be a situation where John would lose by passing out. And they really teased the hell out of that during this match in a lot of places, that's how the ending was going to come down, that it would be John losing by submission by way of a pass out rather than a tap out. But we talked about it on, I think you'll hear it with Ray Cash. He came on at the very tail end of Four Corners, and because a lot of Four Corners podcast actually talks about John Cena's last match. But it was Ray had kind of suggested, and I think there's a lot of merit to this, that John may have been testing Gunther out during this match to see how he did, how he reacted, what kind of performance he put on. Was he ready to have this mantle bestowed upon him of being the guy who tapped out John Cena in his last match? His first time John's tapped out in like 20 years or something like that. And it raises the prospect and the possibility that both options it was going to be a submission victory for Gunther one way or the other. The manner of the submission may have been left up in the air. And ultimately, this is the thing, like, so many people are pissed off at Triple H for booking the match this way. And look, let's get this straight. Let's get this straight out of the way right away. This was not Triple H's call. John Cena went out in this match. He lost the way John Cena wanted to lose. It was John's call, 100%. There's no way that he was going to go into this match and Triple H was going to strong arm him into losing a particular way. Because if John didn't want to do it that way, he's the greatest of all time. He could have really spoken up. And you look at this last year and what they've done with him, they have deferred a lot to John's wishes as far as how he's wanted to handle things. So the notion that this was Triple H's decision to have John Cena tap out in his final match, no, that's not what happened. This was John Cena's decision the whole way. It was John's call. He made the decision to lose by way of tap out. Now, the question as to whether it was up in the air as to whether John would tap or whether he would nap, now that's a different conversation. And I think that was also John Cena's call to make. And I think he made it in the ring. And I think he did it because of the way that match unfolded. I'm sure we'll find out more details about that at some other time. Gunther, of course, wanted to get that tap out victory, and that prospect was obviously always on the table. It was always there. But the bigger question, of course, was would it come to fruition? And I do think there was a bit of a litmus test in that match, and John was kind of seeing how the match unfolded to see what kind of performance Gunther came in with. And at the end of the day, you watch the last 5 minutes of that match, which is just, John Cena fighting for his very survival, really realistically just fighting for his survival in that match, trying desperately to get out of that sleeper hold. And Gunther just wouldn't let him out. Like if anybody's ever seen that movie, The Perfect Storm, which wasn't anything great to write home about, but when they're in the eye of the hurricane and they get that brief moment of sunlight and then the clouds close in and George Clooney's character says she's not going to let us out, and the inevitability that they are not going to survive this, there's a lot of similarities between that and what happens in this match. And I think, it was that same sort of, John sold that so well, that this idea that I can't get out, I can't escape. And then, at the end of the whole thing, John, that arm is going to drop the third time, and he does the symbol and all that stuff, and you think, okay, he's going to break out of this thing, and then Gunther just with those heavy elbows to the side of the face, and he traps John in the sleeper, and John with that little smile, right, that he knows that he has made it to the end. This is what he wanted to do. He made it to the very end of this whole thing. He got to where he wanted to do. He got to the point where I'm where I need to be. I'm fine with this being the end. This guy that I'm in the ring with has delivered on every level that I asked him to deliver to. And so I think at the end of the day, it was ultimately John's decision to tap out. I do adamantly, the more I think about it, I think both options were on the table depending on how the match went down. And the match went down as well as you could have hoped for it to go down for the story that they wanted to tell. Yeah, sure. Is it disappointing? Absolutely. You wanted to see, every fan out there who hasn't been watching pro wrestling their whole life, like, a lot of us have, it was okay to hold out that hope. that John might win this thing because he beat AJ Styles. John won 17. He'd won all these matches, some of them dirtier than others. So you kind of hope maybe at the end of this whole thing that John's going to pull this thing out, right? It didn't go down that way. And that's okay because that was ultimately the plan. At the end of the day, John loses the match by submission. We were wondering, I know Tony and I had been wondering about whether he was going, go walk up the ramp and how much of the locker room would be there to meet him at the end of this whole thing. And at the end, it was the locker room that came out to him, which is really cool. That was a really cool moment. The locker room comes out to meet him. John leaves his wristbands and his shoes in the ring. And I was kidding around with my wife. I was like, he should leave those jorts in the ring. Okay, maybe he can't, bear down to his underwear in the arena. And I get all that. But I know a couple of people I think there was even a leave the jorts chant going on as well. So I wasn't the only one kind of thinking this whole thing. But it was cool. It was reminiscent of like Undertaker at WrestleMania 33, where he left his hat and the gloves and that sort of thing in the ring. And that ultimately turned out to not be Undertaker's final match, even though it should have been, sort of situation. So at the end of the day, my final thoughts on the final match of John Cena, I thought the match was very good. Gunther delivered in every respect. I don't think you can take that away from him. He had a job to do. He did it pretty much flawlessly, and he earned John's respect, and he earned the right to get put over in maximum effectiveness. And a lot of people have drawn comparisons to when Brock Lesnar, of course, broke the streak of The Undertaker. And I think it's not a direct one-to-one comparison, but I think it's pretty close. I mean, you could sit there and say, well, there's a lot of similarities, and there are. When Brock beat the streak, a few months later, he dismantled John Cena at SummerSlam in Los Angeles. I was there, saw the 14 suplexes, the birth of Suplex City. If Brock doesn't end the streak and by beating The Undertaker, does that go down the same way? I don't know, but him breaking the streak, Brock was already a menace to begin with. He'd been a multi-time world champion. He had beat The Undertaker numerous times in the past in his first run with WWE before he went away to be a failed run in the NFL and then becoming a UFC world champion. Then he comes back. So he was already a badass. This just put him on another level. This is going to do the same thing for Gunther. Gunther's already a multi-time world champion, right? I think he's won the World Heavyweight Championship a couple times, I think, at this point. The longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time, had that huge run as the NXT/WWE UK champion. He's already one of the most feared competitors that is in WWE. And this is going to solidify him even further. And we're going to get, Monday Night Raw is going to go on here in a couple hours. So we'll see what they do with that. But it is going to put Gunther on a different level entirely. And that's okay. They are obviously gearing him and grooming him for bigger, better things. You've got, and you look at stuff that Gunther can do with people coming. Obafemi mentioned him earlier and the performance he had against Cody Rhodes. Obafemi versus Gunther is a massive match that is going to happen somewhere down the line. Gunther and Brock Lesnar, this whole comparing Gunther to Brock, Brock will probably be like, okay, now I got to put this guy down and show him who really is the biggest badass in WWE. But you got that Gunther and Braun Breaker, which we've seen before, but not on the main roster and not where they're going to get those two guys by the time they actually do clash at WrestleMania or SummerSlam or who knows when and where. But I think at the end of the day, and I do love, like, at the end of the whole thing, they had the John Cena tribute video that Triple H gave to him. And he got to watch it in the ring to One Republic's I Lived, which is that song means a lot to me because when the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup in 2018, somebody put together a tribute video. And one of the tail aspect, the very last part of it was that song I Lived. And it was the highlights of the Caps beating the Vegas Golden Knights in the Cup final. So hearing that song again, with the meaning that it had to it with John Cena there at the end of this whole thing. Yeah, it was very emotional. I'm not going to say, that it didn't bring a little bit of tears to my eyes. CM Punk was very emotional. Cody Rhodes was very emotional. They gave John their championship belts for that last time. That was really cool to witness. So I love seeing that aspect of things. And it was a great send off. And yeah, just seeing John, the longer that video tribute went on at the end, you could see it building up on him and finally got to him. And he finally realized near the end, you could see him crack a little bit. And that's okay. Because he is, whether you think he's the greatest of all time or just one of them, it's subjective. A lot of the stuff with wrestling is completely subjective. That's okay. whether you would put him on your Mount Rushmore or not. Would I put him on mine? We discussed it the other night. I don't think I can put him on my Mount Rushmore, but if there's a baby Mount Rushmore, like a secondary one, absolutely, John Cena's on there. Top 8 of all time, for sure. No doubt about it. And this last run that he has had leading into his final match only solidified the fact that, John Cena is easily one of the greatest of all time. Maybe not the greatest of all time, but he is, absolutely one of the greatest of all time. And, that is all you can say about it. So that's pretty much the end of what I was going to say about this situation, this match, the John Cena's final match. Some final thoughts about King of the Ring 1996, which we talked about earlier, and this will be on, of course, like I said, on the back end of the latest episode of the Big Five Project. King of the Ring 96, we reviewed it on here, and it's a great event, and I love the fact that we got to cover these two iconic events on one podcast episode where you've got the whole John Cena situation with his last match. And we covered one of the most iconic pay-per-views, as they were called back then, of all time, with the birth of Austin 316, Stone Cold Steve Austin winning the King of the Ring. And we talked so much about, in this episode, about how, with Stone Cold Steve Austin, where he came out there and Austin was, he comes out there and he took advantage of the situation that was presented to him, because it was, as we all know, it was supposed to be Triple H who was going to win this King of the Ring tournament. And it didn't happen because of the curtain call. And we covered that. It only took Stone Cold Steve Austin having that little sliver of an opportunity, and he took that and ran with it all the way. And he came up with Austin 316, and he did all that stuff, and the rest is literally history. But it was also, at that tournament, the first match that we get to see between Mankind and Undertaker. And it's the beginning of one of the most storied rivalries in the history of WWE. And, they meet for the first time here at King of the Ring 1996. And this is 2 years before the match that they're really known for, which is of course, the Hell in a Cell match and the iconic, where you get the whole Mick Foley flying from the top of the cell, going through the tables, nearly getting killed, that sort of thing. And this is where it kind of first starts. But like we talked about in this episode, that this was where Undertaker finally got somebody to work with that could challenge him. And it was somebody else who was had that same sort of just keep coming. You can't keep him down, which has been the staple of The Undertaker up to this point in time. And with this, you got that sort of situation with an opponent. And Mankind was the first guy to really challenge him and to really push The Undertaker in a way that maybe you could argue Yokozuna had done that. And Diesel, of course, did that at WrestleMania 12. But this was the first legitimate, credible threat to the dominance of The Undertaker that he got. And it really changes the trajectory of Undertaker's career at this point in time. It is the beginning of a long storied rivalry that is as vicious and violent as you're going to get. And as we move along, we'll get the Boiler Room Brawl, and then they'll kind of go. And it was interesting. We noticed, and I talked about it with Tunney, that we never got a Taker Mankind match at WrestleMania. I don't know why. That's kind of interesting that we never got Undertaker versus Mankind at WrestleMania, but it's all good. That's fine. But it was you've got that on this card. You've got. And of course, can't take away the main event between Shawn Michaels and the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. That was phenomenal. Just a great match. Like I think I said that it may have gone a touch too long. And the storyline that they were trying to do with Diana Hart Smith and Shawn Michaels and the British Bulldog was, kind of whack, to use some old term vernacular. But you can't take away how great the match was between Shawn Michaels and the British Bulldog, because it was phenomenal. I mean, they 26 minutes of a pretty up-tempo match that was very even between two guys who themselves had a lot of history and a great rivalry with each other. Of course, Shawn Michaels retains this thing at the end. But King of the Ring 1996, because we reviewed it in detail. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about it, because I did want to keep this short and get out of here. King of the Ring 96 was an excellent event and a real return to form after the absolute clusterfuck and disaster that was 1995 with King Mabel. And, I don't even want to go into it. It's PTSD inducing at this point to kind of go back and think about how bad King of the Ring 1995 was, because it sucked. And even saying it sucked might be, kind of putting it mildly. But But that's kind of where I'm going to leave off on this one, guys. And of course, this will all be tied together in the full episode when it comes out. But I will say that on the next installment of the Big Five Project, as we mentioned, we will be covering our first side quest in the Big Five Project, where we're not sticking to the Big Five timeline. We're actually going outside of WWE, because we're going to cover an event that happens just a couple of weeks after King of the Ring 1996. That's Bash at the Beach 96. And of course, you wrestling fans out there, you guys all know what happens at Bash at the Beach 1996, right? It is the birth of Hollywood Hulk Hogan, the birth of the NWO, the third man, all that fun stuff. So we'll be covering that on the next episode of the Big Five Project when the Big Five Project returns. But before we ever get to there, we've got the 11th annual Swaggy Awards that we're going to do. Anybody who, if you're new to the show, or you haven't, been with us that long on this, and I know a lot of this stuff is new with YouTube and all this and live streaming and things like that. The Swaggy Awards we've been doing, this will be our 11th year. It is our end of the year award show. 20 categories that we put on here, where it's a panel of us. I have no idea who will be on the panel yet. We will see how that all turns out. But it's 20 categories. We each go through, we give our best of in the year on categories such as, a best promo of the year, best gimmick match of the year, male wrestler of the year, overall wrestler of the year, match of the year, so forth and so on. And there's some cool categories that are wedged in there as well. It's very rare that you get a unanimous victor. Usually we have like 4 or 5 people on the panel. So it's rare that you have somebody unanimously win. Maybe you get 1 or 2. And the Swaggy Awards have gotten so big and so involved, and the conversation is so deep and entrenched and rich as far as just like really tremendous analysis of the last year of pro wrestling, that we decided a couple years ago to split this into two parts. So it kind of mimics WrestleMania, where WrestleMania went to 2 nights. The Swaggy Awards are now 2 parts. So we'll be doing the Swaggy Awards coming up real soon. We've got some other stuff coming up on Attitude of Aggression, the wrestling side of things. Got a pretty good interview. I think it's coming up in the early part of January. More on that later. So we've got that going on, and that'll probably happen right in between the Swaggy Awards. Over on Unidentified History, we've got some cool stuff coming up. There we'll probably do like an end of the year sort of recap of things. And then we're going to get into the year 1947, which anybody who knows anything about UFOs and UAPs knows that is the sweet spot for major events happening in UFO land. But you know what? I'm going to give you guys some contact information and get you out of here. There will, of course, be some audio I will put at the end of this thing, which I always like to put some audio on here that ties into the Big Five Project episode and probably a little bit about John Cena. But let me give you some contact information. If you want to email the show, you want to ask us questions or anything like that, you got questions, you got comments, things like that, by all means, email the show. The email is we're attitudeofaggression@gmail.com. I'm having a brain lapse there. But again, attitudeofaggression@gmail.com. Please go to the website, which is www.attitudeofaggression.com. All the episodes are hosted there. The historical documentation as far as these UAP events on the unidentified history side of things over there on the website. So please go and check that out. On X, you can follow me at AttitudeAg. That is at AttitudeAGG, which is usually the best way to get a hold of me. That's kind of the best way. That's where I'm most active, is over on X. So that is at AttitudeAGG. Facebook.com/Attitude of Aggression. Not doing a whole lot over there because it's tied into my Instagram account, which is at Attitude of Aggression, all one word. But please go to the YouTube channel. Check out the videos that we're releasing. Subscribe, like, comment, hype. They've got this new hype feature over on YouTube, which is kind of fun. So please, go over there and check that out. YouTube, the channel is Attitude of Aggression. That, my friends, is going to do it for this very quick try to get in and out of here. Thoughts on John Cena's last match, things like that. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope you enjoy the full episode when it comes out. Until next time, wrestling fans and aggressionaholics, stay aggressive, do it with attitude. We will be seeing you soon.
The 4th prestigious King of the Ring, Stone Cold Steve Austin, an incredible victory.
The first thing I want to be done is to get that piece of crap out of my ring. Don't just get him out of the ring, get him out of the WWF. Because I've proved, son, without a shadow of a doubt, you ain't got what it takes anymore. You sit there and you thump your Bible and you say your prayers, and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
Come on, that's not necessary.
All he's got to do is go buy him a cheap bottle of Thunderbird and try to dig back some of that courage he had in his prime. As the king of the ring, I'm serving notice to every one of the WWF superstars. I don't give a damn what they are. They're all on the list, and that's Stone Cold's list, and I'm fixing to start running through all of them. As far as this championship match is considered, son, I don't give a damn if it's Davey Boy Smith or Shawn Michaels. Steve Austin's time has come. And when I get the shot, you're looking at the next WWF champion, and that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
Obviously anything but humble. The fourth prestigious king of the ring, Stone Cold Steve Austin.